Good evening. Welcome to the February 23rd, 2017 meeting of the Monomoy Regional School Committee. I call the meeting to order at 7:03. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the meeting of January 26th.
I move to approve the meeting minutes for both the budget presentation and our regular meeting.
I would second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? That's unanimous approval of the minutes. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anybody here who is like to speak to the school committee, address the school committee this evening? Sir? Up here.
I can be heard without being at the microphone.
But we need it to be,
For the TV.
Oh, for the TV.
you have to be on
Of course.
TV. Just identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Bob Weiser. I live in Harwich, and this is the first time I've been to a school committee meeting, so thank you for permitting me to speak. I am here because I am confused and concerned about the changes in the social studies curriculum. I understand we're considering reducing the requirement from 4 years to 3 years. And I understand that there's some question as to whether government is even going to be offered anymore. And I'd like to respectfully ask permission to, when the discussion of that item in the agenda comes up, to be able to participate in the discussion once I get a clearer idea from the discussion whether I'm correct in my understandings or whether I'm misunderstanding things.
Anybody have any objection to that? No. Hearing none, we'll call on you again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address the school committee? Hi.
Hi, Megan Smith, Harwich parent, and my comments actually are related to it also because I've been watching meetings online. And as far as the requirement changes, speaking as a parent, a sophomore in the school right now, it has been extremely challenging, and Mr. Burkhead is aware, and Mr. Carpenter is aware, to get electives for our students. And I know that the guidance staff are working as hard as they possibly can to get placements, but their hands are tied by the requirements. And for example, my daughter is in the band, and she wants to take band every year. She wants to be in the band every year because of that one elective. And all the requirements that she's going to have, she doesn't get any useful electives for her career interest. This is the fourth semester that we've had trouble with the scheduling, and hopefully they'll be able to work it out for next year. But I'm hoping that if you do change that requirement, not eliminating the course, because I do feel that government is a very important course, but if you make it an elective, I think that the added benefit will be that the students who are taking that course are invested in that course. They're interested in that course. And you'll get a better return from the students who are in it, as opposed to making it a requirement, and all the students who are sitting there have to be there. Also, that'll open up that option for the students who would rather take that science requirement, and again, will be invested in their choices. I really hope that you will consider that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else who would like to address the school committee? Hearing no other people. Next item on the agenda is recognitions. Mr. Carpenter.
Just one quick recognition, sad one. We received word this past weekend that Chatham Selectman Roper passed away, and I just want to extend my condolences to the Roper family. I always found that Tim was a strong supporter of this school district ever since I came here, and really appreciated the support that we got from him, and I wish his family well.
You're here. Thank you. Okay, anything else on recognitions? No. Next items are the reports and discussion items. On our agenda tonight, the first item for discussion that's listed on the agenda is labeled as parameters for draft Monomoy Regional School District memorial policy. As a lot of people know, this deals with not only memorial with regard to members of the school committee who are no longer serving, but also the issue that's been brought up by the family of Jordan Fisher. I want to report that I've received a written letter from the representative requesting that we not address this issue with regard to Jordan this evening, and that, in fact, we put the discussion off completely until our next meeting on March 9th, and I'm going to honor that request, so we will not be discussing that topic tonight. So the next item on the agenda is the Monomoy Regional High School All-State Music Festival Field Trip. Mr. Burkett.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I apologize for the tardiness of this request. I understand it should be 2 months in advance if there's an overnight stay. Under the circumstances, we don't typically know who's going to make all states in music, so the end of January, which was the case. We're happy to report that we do have 2 students, and the rules are that a teacher stay overnight with the students. It is in Boston. That's the reason for the late notice, so I do apologize for that, but that is a request and is required. What we will do in the future is make this request in a timely manner, anticipating that if we have students contingent upon that, then we will ask for permission in the future. But that's the reason why it's so late, and I do apologize. So the request is to, for this trip, for these 2 students that have done a terrific job and qualified for states.
Is this a sort of a singing or a musical instrument? It is both.
Yes.
So should we have a policy that if you come in late, they have to sing their request?
Well, I wish Ms. Richard was here because she could probably sing for you, but I cannot do that. Just to mention, Christian Pavlakis and Isaiah Stafford are the 2 students that will be attending Ms. Richard.
Both in choral?
Christian is bass and Isaiah is tenor.
Right, well, we've had that request. It is an action item posted properly on our agenda. Is there anybody that would like to make a motion?
I move that we
Mr. Duvall.
approve the overnight field trip to the All-State Musical Festival for March 9th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Ms. Stout?
My discussion is not pertaining to this, but unlike this, there are a lot of field trips that come in at the last minute. I wonder if we couldn't know ahead to even put it on the agenda, not, nothing to do with this particular one, just so we have them ahead of time.
I think that's what we usually do. This was an extraordinary circumstances. I understand it.
I'm very supportive of this.
Any further discussion? Is the motion in favor? Is all those in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is the Monomoy Regional High School graduation requirements update. Just while Mr. Burkhead is preparing, I want to point out that this is an item for discussion this evening. It's also listed on our agenda as an action item. I would respectfully request the support of the committee that we not vote on that this evening. We have a couple of members missing, and I'm pretty confident that the members who are missing would like to be here to discuss it. So is there anybody here who has an objection to putting our vote on this proposal to the next meeting? Sharon?
I don't have any objection to this, but I propose that same thing falls true about most of the things on the agenda for us not to vote
Well,
on.
we'll take them one at a time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. I presented this in the last...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me just, I apologize.
Sure.
I want to add that in addition to the fact that we have members that are not present, we have received communications from other people in the community who have emailed me to point out that they're on school vacation. It's unusual that we have a meeting at all on school vacation week. So even more importantly, frankly, than the fact that we don't have all of our members here tonight, my request to put off the vote has to do with the fact that I'd like to ensure that members of our community have an opportunity to speak on the issue. Thank you.
Thank you. I will respectfully request that as we can get a vote on this as quickly as possible. This does impact, this in the next item, to impact our scheduling and our program studies, which we will need to present to you in March. So I presented on this last meeting. We provided you with a revised document. We tried to make it a little more user-friendly in response to some of the questions you had. So what you see here is a chart of the K schools. In the left column is our current situation and our required courses and our total credits for the year. We included in the second column a recommendation for next year, and we compared those to other schools on Cape Cod. And if you'll notice that in the green is those columns which have higher numbers than Monomoy, and in the pinkish red, those numbers that have lower than the Monomoy recommendation, just to help you see through that. And just to review a couple of the goals we have in doing this, this has been a couple of years in the making. What we found is when we reviewed our course of studies and our graduation requirements is that in the course of a year, we ask our students to complete, as you'll see up there in the third column from the bottom, almost a year's more worth of courses, at least a semester more than most other schools. So if you look at that column that says total graduation requirement credits, we've included a percentage underneath. So that number is what schools require the students to complete before graduation, and compared to the total amount of credits, which is the last column. So next to Sturgis, Monomoy students have the most stringent pathway and the least amount of opportunities and choices. Ms. Smith just came up here and testified to the fact what we're dealing with at the school level on a pretty regular basis. We're dealing with kids that come into the junior and senior year that don't have any flexibility to schedule courses that they need to schedule to pursue their passion, to pursue their college careers, and to be lifelong learners. And we're losing some kids to that. And we've had kids say, you know, I can't get here, I'm going to Nauset. So I want to be very clear tonight in the big picture that this is not a referendum on getting rid of government class. This is a bigger picture. This is us competing with other schools on Cape Cod for our students and to provide opportunities for those students. This has not been decided in a vacuum. It's included our whole staff in the decision, our administration and central office and their administration. In a well-thought-out manner. So this does not come lightly. And I know we're going to get some pushback. We've heard some people concerned about government. It's a great class. It's not going anywhere. And it's going to be very popular here. But it's one piece of this larger picture. And I would even say that down the road, there is a way that if the community felt that strongly about it, there is a way to include a government requirement in the program of studies without having a 4-year requirement. And that's something we could talk about at a later date, but there is that possibility. So this doesn't kill government, it doesn't make it go away. Again, some of our best teachers teach those courses and they're very popular. What it does allow in that senior year is for the kids to have some flexibility to choose whether they take government science or another world language. The last thing I want to point out is last week we talked about total credits was the other conversation we had, and I didn't have the numbers there, so I provided them for you. We originally suggested 90 credits, and after looking at other schools, and I want to thank Ms. Police, who's here tonight, Director of Guidance, who called every single school. You know, we had the data online, and it's very difficult. So it's comparing apples and oranges because different schools have different credits. Some go 3, we go 4, some go 2.5. So we try to make it apples to apples for you, and it took a lot of work to do that. And I know there's a lot of keys there, but you can read through that. Basically, what you're seeing is that we've increased ours to 96, which is only a 4-credit decrease. And I know people are concerned about, you know, let's not go too low, and I understand that. We're right in the middle with our credits. It's not unreasonable. It's in line with what other schools are doing. And our graduation requirements, as you see, going from 84 to 40, we're still, besides Sturgis, 71% of our graduation requirements. We're still pretty strict on what we ask kids to do, but we are loosening. Our goal is to loosen it up a little bit so our juniors and seniors that we spoke of today have more opportunities and options. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions from the committee? Mr. Weiser, would you like to address? Okay.
If I can just chime in here for a second. Yeah, I think there are multiple different things here that Bill's trying to address, and I think total graduation credits gets muddled with government, gets muddled with a lot of other things, because. But I want to emphasize a couple things that I support. I support the reduction, that 4-credit reduction in what's required to graduate from 100 to 96. And I mentioned this before with a number of the school committee members in a public session that that you have students who will have a profound need. Let's say they were off on skiing vacation over February vacation and end up with a concussion and frequently end up needing a course load reduction. If we don't have flexibility in being able to tell the child and their family that you can go and have a course load reduction for a semester and still graduate in 4 years, that we're doing a disservice to that child and that family. And that's one of the things that we got hammered on earlier this year with our 4-year graduation requirement, our 4-year graduation rate. We had 10 kids in the class of 2015 who needed an extra summer or an extra semester to go and finish their graduation requirement to get that total number of credits. And we have things between illnesses or just a student failed a couple courses to things like concussion we have to wrestle with. And I think that that's a good way to help students have second chances to have the flexibility to reduce a course load if it's in the student's best interest. The other thing that I want to be very transparent about is when it comes to government, U.S. history, and all of that. At the present, most of our students in this high school take U.S. history in 10th grade, U.S. history 2 in 11th grade, and a government class senior year. And if we recall, we had one of the history teachers brought to this committee a proposal for a global studies diploma, which the committee unanimously supported. So I have sent both Mr. Burkhead and the history department coordinator an email saying we need to get ready for global, because we can't, as a school, espouse that we have a global studies program if there's no room within the history department's offerings in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade to take a global studies class. So we can't have our cake and eat it too. If we're gonna have, I think, a great addition to our offerings and to have that global studies diploma, we've got to make some choices as to what aspects of government and U.S. history do we want to focus on, what electives do we want to have in history for some students, and where, what sort of global studies courses do we put in place to have our school embrace that global studies diploma. So, yeah, so that's all wrapped up in part of, of this. So, it's, the email that I sent to Mr. Burkhead and Mr. Alexander, the history department chair, I'm perfectly comfortable with one of those courses being government, but then we have to acknowledge that what we do in a 2-year U.S. history, we have to condense and focus on U.S. history is going to be a 1 year. Or, or is it going to be U.S. history? We have 2 years of U.S. history, but in the process of covering those 2 years of U.S. history, we hit the things that we feel most important. So our graduates are ready to be good civic-minded citizens and have an understanding of how their government works. So I think that vote that the committee had to adopt a global studies program is really going to create a situation where the history department, and for that matter, I think our other departments, have to look at their curriculum and say, okay, how do we go global and where in our curriculum to support this new global studies program?
Ms. Richardson.
Dealing with the majority of students, other than the people that might have a concussion or something, can they stop at 96 credits and ride out the rest of the year?
Yes. So they're required to take 7 courses, 7 classes each year. So
Okay.
so it would only be in some profound situation that you would have a course load reduction, and it also gives students a chance to have the proverbial second chance. If they did fail something, it now means that they can still graduate in 4 years. That
Right, okay, thank you.
Ms. Stout.
So it seems as though how we got here was 2 years ago, I think it was, that the selectmen, over February vacation, cut our budget by $800,000 or so, when we had 8 periods, and everybody could fit everything in to 7 periods. And I see that as the problem with this. I am very supportive of what I know. I don't know that much about the global studies, but I appreciate very much that this went from what we were talking about last time to 112. That does seem average. About the government, though, I would, to support this, need to know that there was government, because of all the histories, or even many of the other things that kids are taught in high school, government is something we talk about, that we want our students to be good citizens. Well, it's impossible for them to be a good citizen without government. And I talked with Sarah Peak, our state representative, and she says all the letters and emails that she gets, people don't know. They just don't know what government is, or the things we should know. So to me, that's very critical in all the changes we're talking about. There are a number of people that have said to me that they wanted to be at this meeting, but they didn't know it was tonight because it was vacation and we don't have them. So maybe now is the time to mention that voting on this, I think it was the government piece, but it could have been other pieces of it, because I didn't go into length about it. But I can't support it without knowing there's government there, and I can't support the vote taken tonight unless we have that resolved.
Anybody else? Comments, questions? Mr. Burkhead, in response?
No, just to follow up, that government is not being canceled or done away with.
No, as a requirement. I'm sorry, I didn't
Okay,
make that
thank
clear. As a requirement.
Mr. Weiser?
So my misunderstanding that government will continue to be offered, but it will not be required. And if I understand Mr. Carpenter correctly, a consideration might be figuring out how to incorporate the government curriculum into the 2 years of U.S. history in some fashion, which I think might be a consideration worth examining for the reasons that were stated by Ms. Stout, that the importance of having some fluency in how government functions is the outcome of learning a little bit of history, because the combination of those two things has the potential to prepare people to be effective citizens. And the absence of either of those things makes people less likely to be effective citizens. And I have no objections in principle to the idea of making available a global studies program of some sort. I think that's a great idea in the modern world, but as it's less essential to the fundamental function of the education system than preparing people to actually be able to be informed voters. So perhaps that's a direction that the committee will consider with the history teachers, as to whether or not there's some way of developing that 2-year program so that it addresses both of those things in a way that's required rather than optional, which still leaves time for the electives. There's never enough time for everything, is there? Especially if it's true that we reduced it. For me, I didn't know that we had reduced the class periods from 8 to 7. I guess I haven't been paying close enough attention. Perhaps if I had taken a government class, I would have done so. But I was once a history teacher, and I remember distinctly how woefully unprepared my students were to go forth into the voting booth, even after my excellent teaching. So I would hate to see any reduction in the opportunities we give our young people to develop the critical thinking skills and the ability to determine fact from fiction in the course of their high school development, so that they go forward and are informed in such a manner that we get the good government we need and deserve.
Thank you. Any other comments? I'm happy to report that as far back as I can remember, I haven't been able to leave the voting booth in this town without either the Harwich or Monomoy students corralling me on the way out to ask me, various questions. And I can tell I know for a fact that there's a lot of support in our school system for teaching kids how government works. I've experienced it. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burkett.
Thank you.
Don't go too far.
I know.
Next item on the agenda is the Power Hour Lunch Pilot Guidelines and Benefits. Mr. Burkett.
Thank you. Just give me a second to- Okay, so Mr. Wyburn has stated this. My presentation is going to have to do with the Jocelyn pilot presentation and a proposal to do something, in my opinion, pretty magical, pretty amazing how this came about. I'm going to go through this a little bit with the history and how it evolved. And we'll start with the first slide here. Just a little bit of background of what the conversations are happening at the high school. Where, I put this quote in by Steve Jobs, it kind of goes with the title up there. We really want to commit to the highest levels of learning for all kids. And I like the quote there because it talks about being the yardstick of quality. Some people aren't used to an environment where excellence is expected. We're not there yet. And a lot of these ideas with the global studies and their adjusting of graduation requirements, and this tonight's proposal are avenues we are taking to separate us from other schools on Cape Cod. We're constantly talking about that. What can we do to be the best in the state, not just Cape Cod? What can we do to be the best school in the state? And so the first 2 years we spent a lot of time on our school culture, which means getting students and teachers and administrators to build trust amongst the group so that we can have a decision-making process where everyone has a voice and that things move forward at a quicker pace where things are embraced, and then you have a higher success rate. And I think this is a perfect example of what I'm going to share with you tonight, and it addresses some of the issues that we have. So we talk about, and I underlined some key points to the purpose of our school that we kind of talked about in the conversations where this evolved, is that all students, you hear a lot of all students should learn. We want all students to learn at high levels, okay? And then I talk a little bit about our staff has worked diligently and collaboratively. Again, a key culture point here. And I'll have a couple of teachers come up and talk to them about the process in a minute. And we come up with a systemic plan, which we are calling JOSMOWR, that will ensure students receive additional time and support for learning when they struggle, and extend and enrich learning when they have mastered expected outcomes. So this is the best of both worlds. The kids that are really in need of that help will find the support they need, and those kids that are thriving will find opportunities in enrichment to heighten their interests. And I'll get to what those specifically mean soon. So the next thing we started talking about is what ifs. What's our ideal? We want to start there. What if we could raise the bar for all our students? And what if we could find that time during the school day to extend enrichment opportunities and provide additional support for all kids? Okay, what we're doing now, what most schools do, is provide after-school opportunities. We're actually ahead of the curve here, Monomoy, because we have every other Wednesday we have an enrichment opportunity where kids can go to clubs and activities, and we have assemblies. That's huge for us, but it's once every other week, and it's 40 minutes. But schools don't even offer that, so that's one of the things that attracted me to come here. But the key to a great school is they have these things built into the school day. Other opportunities, for example, clubs. We have a small school, we offer many clubs, we offer many athletic opportunities. Kids can't do them all. The same kids have, and we heard Ms. Smith say, the same kids have to do 3 or 4 things after school, they can only do one. So they just can't stretch themselves. But if we had that time during the day, wow, that'd be pretty special. Not many schools can pull that off. So that's the kind of thing we were talking about in the utopian situation. What if we could actually gain student time with teachers during the school day? Okay, to do all this, but actually gain connection time. What if we could empower teachers and empower students to think critically and creatively? Now, that comes in ownership of this, and the ideas you'll see tonight were created by staff, students. What if we could boost morale to an all-time high? The problem with schools now is it seems like we're always in a rush. It's probably the same with business, right? You go bell to bell to bell, you talk to the kids. Mr. Martin, who I think he's coming a little bit later after his tennis game tonight, will be joining us. He did shadow a student last week where he got his backpack on, got his sneakers on, and he went to school with a kid. And he followed his schedule, and he ate lunch with him, and he went to all the periods. He didn't do the homework, though, so he took a little bit of a shortcut, so I'll have to get him for that. But he was exhausted afterwards. He was mentally exhausted because he just he felt like he was always in a rush. Even at lunch, by the time he got his lunch and sat down, he just felt rushed. So this tries to incorporate that break in the day where you can do your academics, you can get enrichment, and still see some of your friends and socialize and catch your breath, meaning students and adults. So that's what we're talking about by morale. What if we could implement such a magical program for our school without having to rewrite, negotiate a new contract? So all these things I'm talking about here are contractual. I mean, if we're going to take time from this, give it to that, we're going to have to negotiate. We think we've come up with a solution to work together to come up with that without going through that long process. And so what happened was one of our teachers, Ms. Dunn, our outstanding art teacher, came in with an article that you all have in your packet. If you don't, let me know. I can supply that for you. What happens when a large high school has a single 1-hour lunch? This is about a Westport High School in Florida. The principal is Jane Elsperman. She's currently the National Association of Secondary School Principals, the largest organization for principals and administrators. She's the president. And so she must be doing something right. She was principal of the year, and among other accolades. Her school, I believe, was 2,600 students. We have 600. And she did something similar to this. We use that model, certainly different situation. But these are some of the stats. So we had a group of teachers that I'll mention their names a little bit later that took it upon themselves after asking all those what ifs. Well, let's go out and find what other people are doing to get this accomplished at our school. So this was teacher driven, this idea and this concept. So they went out and they talked to Jane, and Jane became kind of a volunteer consultant to us. She Skyped at our staff meetings. She conversed with us, she answered all our emails. Step by step, she was involved in the whole process. It was pretty amazing to have her expertise. And we researched other schools. We researched other schools where they succeeded, and we researched other schools where it failed. And this is kind of the common denominator that we saw at her school in one short year. So I'll let you read those for yourself, but it really turned her school around. And I just put a couple quotes in there because when you hear this, it sounds too good to be true, and of course it's going to be tough. It's not going to be easy to implement. So from the very beginning, students exceeded expectations, enthusiastically signing up for clubs and activities and leaving campus cleaner than it had been. Students dubbed the midday power hour because it felt empowered them, and we'll see that a little bit in our situation. In short, the imagined risks never materialized, and they've been doing it ever since. I don't know if it's 10 years now. It's still in place. Still, I talked to North Carolina, still doing it. I talked to the principal, loves it, really reaping benefits. You know, the interesting thing is there's not many schools doing it in Massachusetts. You know, Falmouth has a version of it, but it's actually a scheduled block in their day. It's another class, so it's very different than what we're trying to do here. All right, so it's very rare. Okay, so the focus is on academics and self-improvement. If you believe that a student is given time during the school day to focus on improvement and ability to work with teachers who are eager to support them, then we believe the academic performance, positive social interaction, which is huge at high school, and the quality of learning will improve across the board. And data has shown that from our research. Plus, we know that every time we set the bar high for our kids, they reach it here at Monomoy. My 3 years here, I'm just amazed. We just keep raising them. They keep going until we get some really great kids here. So I have full confidence that they'll handle these expectations. So the goals of the hour, during the school day, we will be able to increase opportunities to support all kids, allow time for student choice, involvement in enrichment and extracurricular activities, allow more efficient use of staff and student time during the lunch block. So right now, in every typical high school, you'll have teachers and administrators standing watching kids eat lunch, right? We're supervising them. We have about four staff members in watching kids eat. It's not the best use of our time. We think we can use it better. That's part. We'd rather have our teachers in the classroom with kids during that time. So that's another thing we try to pull off, using better use of our time. Personalization of education. You'll see some of this is more like almost like it's partly a college atmosphere where kids will have some choices. They'll be able to do things they like. They'll be able to get support, but they'll get to do it in smaller groups, and they'll get to do it with teachers they choose to be with. Sometimes it'll be teachers choosing them to come in if they need the support, if they're not doing so well in a class. But it allows that, back to that initial comment I made about the rush, 15, 20 kids in a classroom, then you go to the next class, you go to the next class. We're trying to break that up a little and have a little more intimate conversations of education in smaller groups with kids. It's more profound. And improve overall academic performance of students. And I'll talk about this when I talk about data collection and how we're going to look into if this is successful or not, looking at overall class averages for all our kids. So we're not just taking one population here. We're going to look at all our kids and how well they improve. Okay, so how do we find the time to do that in our current schedule? So we started by looking at more efficient use of our low-hanging fruit, like passing time. We're not a big school. Right now we have 5 minutes to go to class, and that's just right. You know, it's a little extra time to say hi to your friends and stuff, but it's about right. But kids can do it in 4. You know, and we've run this by kids, and we have some students here tonight that we've had in our groups to inquire about this, and they're willing to do that if they have this extra time at lunch. So that's a little trade-off for them, and as well as teachers, because it's part of the teachers' time, too, that they're willing to use. We have a Take 5 right now. It's one of the best things we've done. It's the most successful thing the kids enjoy. It's one of the few survey questions I give the kids that is always 100% yes, keep it. So what that is we just extend our passing time from 5 minutes to 10 minutes after first block, so kids can go get a bite to eat, see a friend, connect, take a breath. This is basically just a little longer version of that, more organized, obviously. But we're taking that time. And then every other Wednesday, enrichment for 40 minutes I talked about, it's real good. But if we can do it every day for a half hour, 25 minutes, half hour, we're going to gain a lot more time. So we would take that time. And then we To make this fit, we took 1 minute from each class. So I'll get to it. If we jump down to that bottom line, on average, because this is important, we'll have 29 minutes, it's about a minute of class time per week. But we'll gain at least 125 up to 150 or more minutes of contact time with the teachers. So in our opinion, collective opinion, it's a real good deal. And I'll show you what I mean by that shortly. If you look at the current schedule, we just talked about where we got that time. So currently we have 3 lunches, and it goes an hour and 25 minutes, a big chunk of our day. And within that lunch, we have 5 minutes passing every time to go to lunch, to come back. And what we see is that another benefit of this potentially is that we have a lot of interruptions in our day with bells, but also passing time. There's 15 minutes built into these lunches that we just took back because we don't need it in the new Jocelyn proposal. In the new proposal, it would be 1 lunch split into 2 parts, 55 minutes total with just 1 5-minute break in between, no bells. I talked a little bit about passing time, the enrichment time. I talked about on the left and on the 4th bullet down, inconsistent class time. So right now, we've got a good schedule, but the times are not, class times are not all consistent. And that's difficult for a teacher and a student to prepare for. So we have some classes of 65, most are. The lunch block is 80 minutes, it's a long block. And last block is 60 minutes. So every day and we rotate. So there's not a lot of consistency. What we've done with this schedule is just every class is 65 minutes, except the last class was 63. You can't get more consistent than that. So that would really help. You're also not interrupting people and teachers in class and students. For example, if I have second lunch, I report to my first class for 25 minutes. Then the bell rings, I go and have lunch, and they come back for the next 60 minutes. So that class is interrupted. It's the only way to do it. So the only way you're not interrupted is if you have first or third lunch. So this alleviates that as well. And the last bullet there is students have no flexibility when they eat lunch. You know, the kids used to talk to me about this until I had, I have a daughter that just is a sophomore in college and a son senior. And when they talk to me at home about what they like and dislike about school, one of the things they often bring up is social things, social time, and not being able to see their friends till after school. And that's a big deal, and it's a big deal to kids, and it's a big deal to our kids. Under this program, you'll be able to eat lunch with your friends and get to see them. It's not the priority, but it's a big deal to kids. It's one benefit that I wanted to bring up because it's important to our kids. So we can still get their education, we can still provide them support, and they get to see their friends as an added bonus. So I wanted to make sure I included that for the students. So here's what a typical schedule would look like. So you see on the left column, we have a 7-day rotating cycle. I won't confuse you with all this, but the first column, day 1, is probably the easiest. We're at lunch. The other benefit of this right now, we have our first lunch at 10:50. It's pretty early in the morning. In an early release days, that's 10:20 a.m. And a lot of the students complain that it's way too early. They're starving by the time they leave. You see this lunch fits nicely right where lunch should if you're coming in at 8 o'clock. About 11:20, and it goes 55 minutes. And I'm going to get into a little bit specifically what that looks like in the specifics and how it all works. I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse of a typical day. You see the consistency. We have early release Wednesday on the right. That is really no change than what we currently have. Those times are exactly pretty much the same. That's for PLC day. So that's scheduled on the right. We're real proud of this. We had a staff survey after we presented this concept to the staff because it was developed by teachers with student input, administrative input certainly, and they spent over a year researching this in many drafts, and they put it through a teacher survey. I joke with our teachers, and I've been around in education long enough. If you brought the staff outside tomorrow and asked whether it was sunny or not, I'd bet you that you'd have time cover 94% agreement. So we are very proud of this, 94%. I think there's a couple of no votes on the process. So we weren't going to move forward with this unless we had overwhelming teacher embracement of this concept because it's their sacrifice that they're going to have to be working with the kids basically during their duty time. Unheard of without a contractual agreement. So that's what we're going to see here. So here's some of the opportunities. I love getting my Jim Collins quotes in there for you. Good to great stuff. But this is a conscious choice to be better than what we're doing. We're not satisfied with what we have right now. We're frustrated that we have to keep kids after school to get extra help now. Common sense will tell you, if you're not good at math, and you're failing math, and your math teacher says, stay after school for more math, not fun, gotta do it. A lot of kids don't show up. We're not the only school that has that problem. All right, so I think providing that support during the day, when you have control of it, and it's part of their regular day, is genius, and it's what great schools do. So intentional enrichment opportunities on the left, these are some, and I guess I'll start with the right, I'm sorry, academic overtime. So here's where the metal hits the road here, rubber hits the road, excuse me. Students are required to attend academic overtime when assigned by the teacher, and they may receive a pass to academic support when they have a 0 on any assignment, they have a grade below a 75 in any course, they have an incomplete in any course, or they need to make up work. So you get a pass from a teacher, it's teacher discretion, you get a pass from a teacher, you are to attend. It's non-negotiable. All right, so it's just like cutting any other class if you don't go. So that's where we have teacher input support. They have a pass for the kids got to go. Now, if you're in good standing, your grades are great, doing fine, you don't need that, it may also hit you here because you may need to make up work, right? Everyone gets sick. Now when do we have kids make up work? We have them come after school. Now they play a sport. They're in the band. When do they make up that work? Again, now it becomes a problem. You've got a concussion, like Scott said. They're certainly an issue at every school. They happen. They're real. They're not going away. Hopefully they'll decrease. But now when does that child that has missed 2 weeks of school make up that work? Here's an opportunity. So it's not just for the kids that are getting D's and F's. It's for those kids that may miss something or just didn't do very well in a homework assignment or just didn't have the time. Instead of taking that 0 or low grade, they can go at the Jocelyn at lunch and work with their teacher to make that up. So that's the strict part there. And then they eat the other half of the lunch. So they go 25, 30 minutes with the teacher, then they go eat the other half, just like now. So these are the other potential things. In the middle, I talk about other supports. These are things that have been frustrating us that we really haven't had time to work on. For example, we want to get our MCAS scores up, right? Of course we do. What do we do for those kids that fail MCAS? Geez, we schedule them a support class in the day, maybe, yeah, we try to keep after school. We had a grant recently for kids that failed, and we lost that grant. The state cut down the funds, so we don't have that. We've got teachers already stepping up to run MCAS mini sessions for those students to help them pass their MCAS during the school day, as long as it takes. So if you're a student in that situation, you're a parent, says, I want, little Joey hasn't passed math MCAS, he's got it coming up in March. We're gonna send him every day to that MCAS support class, get him to pass. There's a great use of that time. We don't have that right now. Same thing with SAT. Okay, you're a thriving kid, you want to go to college, you need some brush up on your SAT, save your parents $500 on the course, you can take this with other teachers. These are things that teachers came up with. Essay writing 101. Right, we talked about that. So we've got something for everybody. Peer tutoring. We've got students now building their college resumes that want to help other students. A lot of this is after school. It's really tough to coordinate that, getting both kids that are busy kids to sit together and do homework. Now we do it during the school day. We envision that being in the library. We've got groups of kids. Like, I'm a senior that I'm really excited about math and enjoy it. I put my schedule up. Kids can come and get math extra help with me on these days and these blocks. We'll have a master schedule published. All the kids will have access to it on a shared Google Doc, and it'll post it physically all over the school. So guidance is another one. And Jim's here when the teachers talk. They can probably bring this up. We have college recruiters coming here. We've got great kids. They want to talk to our kids. We've got to pull them out of class. So what's that? We pull them out of class to talk to a college, where they're missing class. That's a very difficult, and a lot of schools deal with this. This is the time to do that. Our surveys from parents and kids were very, very clear that they wanted more meetings with guidance. And it's just a time thing right now. This frees our guidance counselors up and our students. For example, hey, I got to get ready for my college. I'm going to go down and see Miss Police tomorrow during Jocelyn hour. Right in the middle of the day. Make an appointment and go. We can see a lot of kids that way in guidance. Also for social emotional issues. We have cause on committees and counseling for our kids. We've got a school psychologist and adjustment counselor. It's tough to get all the kids to come in. So now this will allow us time to talk with kids. It also helps those kids that that have anxiety issues that don't like eating in a big cafeteria. It allows some spots where they can go during this time to eat quietly with a friend or a teacher. And the last column is potential enrichment. A lot of fun stuff here. If you're thriving at school and you want to go, and there's going to be clubs opportunity during that time, you go eat your lunch with your friends and, hey, let's go to this club. There's intramurals up here we're going to be offering. Let's go play some volleyball. Let's go be in that volleyball tournament, blow off some steam. All right, so it's not a lunch hour. Everyone has to be somewhere, but you get a little choice. Now I'm doing what I'm told. I'm doing good in school. I'm hitting the grades. I'm hitting the books. I could be in that left column. I'm absent one day. Jump into the right column and go make the work up. And this is why the research shows this works. We have had internships that go out in the community right now. We have 66, 67-minute classes. They got to go out, and it says they got to come back in within the hour. It's tough. Now we can schedule some of our kids during the block back up to this power hour, and they can get another extra hour out on the internship. So it opens flexibilities for a more lifelike experience in our internship. Club and class meetings. We've got some book clubs already sprouting up. And then student-led initiatives. That's an important one. We have a cool thing here, and Scott started this, and we love it. We have clubs in our program of studies, or handbook, excuse me, but they're not finite. So it means if a student wants to start a club, all they need is a couple of kids and a willing adult to volunteer to run it, and they can do it. And we probably have about 10 of those that popped up just because the kids wanted to do it. The best story I got was, I think, last year. An 8th grader sent me a letter, said, I really love war movies. Can I start an Art of War club? And I went and I sent it to Mr. Houston, and now it's one of our most thriving clubs. Every Friday they watch war movies and eat popcorn and have a good old time talking about history. So that's an example of something that could meet, on these days. So that's kind of the opportunities for the kids. And finally, what data we're going to look at, come back and share with you and everyone else. Well, is this working out? Are we going to fix? There's a lot of stuff up here. I put as much data points as I could just to see. This alone won't solve all our problems, but we hope to see a shift in these numbers. We want to look at these for other reasons too. So when kids go to enrichment, you saw that at Westport High School, their enrichment numbers went up by about 60%. Kids are going to sign in, and we're going to track that. When kids go for extra help or academic overtime, they're going to sign in, we're going to be able to track that. So we're going to be able to get back to you and say, okay, this spring, our students, the X amount of students were able to get this 100 hours on extra help that they wouldn't have ordinarily got in our current model. So that data we'll be able to share. That's why we want to pilot this thing, check it out, see how it goes, and collect this data. We want to look at the kids that, we want to raise the bar as we talked about. We want all our kids getting about 75s, all right? And so we're going to be looking at our C's, D's, and F's and seeing that they improve. That B's and A's too, quite honestly. We want everybody to go up, and I think that's the next bullet, the 4th bullet down. Overall class average and rates of student improvement. So right now, mathematically, our grades are given by numbers, not grades. So 88 versus a B. So an 88, so every student's grade can be calculated and divided by the number of students and come up with an average. We want to see that overall average go up, so it's a way to measure overall academic performance of our students. And then 0 grades. 0 is a killer. You get 1 0. How many A's you need to get that just to get a passing B, right? They kill you. A lot of that happens when you miss a homework and you don't have the time after school to come and make it up. You miss an assignment. We're providing that time now. There is no excuse why you should have 0s in your report card or in your grades. Student, staff, parent survey. We, at the end of this, we want to survey our staff and our parents and our kids and say, what do you think? I think that's important to give everyone had a voice starting this. We want to give everyone a place where we continue, what they like, what they dislike, how we can improve. And we do a lot of surveys at our school because that's how you grow. We're going to look at discipline for us. Detention is going to be during JOSM hour. All right? We're not going to chase kids after school anymore, waiting around to see if they're showing how. You go eat your lunch, and then if you've been fresh or you're doing some school, All right, so I think it solves a lot of problems. It means kids will serve the detentions when they have them. We don't have a ton of them. But also, it's an incentive that, geez, I don't want to go and play in murals. I don't want to be in detention, right? And it's, and that's shown. That's why you saw the decrease in the huge decrease in discipline at Westport High School. Again, that's not a problem for us, discipline, but any kid that we can keep out of being in detention is good. So we'd like to get that down to nothing. It certainly helps the morale and the character of your school. Attendance and tardies, starting school there next year, we hope to see that improve it better. But that's also something we think here, because we think, at least in my anecdotal data, talking to kids, that if I get a project to do or I don't have the time, I'm either not going to go to school or I'm going to stay home and finish it. Part of tardies, a lot of other reasons, but hopefully we can curtail some of that with this. Cafeteria income and lunch meals served, we just want to keep an eye and make sure our cafeteria is self-funded. We want to make sure that kids are still eating. In fact, we think the number of kids that eat might go up because lunch is at a more lunchtime time. So we're going to watch that. Curious. And school cleanliness is a big one. Kids are going to be able to eat anywhere except the lobby area, not in stairwells and things like that. You saw some tables that we have out here. We're going to have more on Main Street. We had it approved by the fire marshal. A lot of our kids now eat in classrooms with teachers and do work. That's already happening. Our school is very clean. We have a lot of pride in our school. So they're going to have some flexibilities where they eat. So we're not going to have, 220 kids jammed in the cafeteria. It's going to be spread out a little bit. And that's going to be, the administration's deal, monitoring that, supervising, and keeping an eye on kids along with the 130 cameras we have in the school, which is always a good deterrent. And number of complaints, another issue we're dealing with, that all schools deal with, is if you don't get all your work done for whatever reason. If you only went on a trip, you had a concussion, you were ill, you didn't get it done, you have an incomplete. This is a good time to make that up. So we're not chasing it into next semester, next year, and then it becomes a failure. So we're going to be watching our incomplete rates and see that they improve. And then I gave you the example of the MCAS. This is one more little piece to help our MCAS scores and help those kids that struggle with that pass. Are there any more questions for me at this point before I turn it over to some of our students and teachers? Mr. Russell.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Bill. Very clear. I've heard the past month or two ideas surrounding this, but it's a lot cleaner to listen as well as read this. I do have several questions, seeing its first blush. Who and how would these youngsters be ID'd? With their Aspen scores or individual teachers?
ID'd for coming for extra help, you mean, and stuff
Sure,
like that?
yeah.
Yeah, individual teachers.
And this is puzzling to me, and I think being in the business is a detriment. What happens to the enrichment staff? That is phys ed, health, music, art, tech, et cetera, during that power hour 5 days a week? Did you allude to the fact that there wouldn't be enrichment blocks? I mean, they're teaching, or would they, during that time, have kids coming to them?
Yeah, they would be just like every other teacher. They would have kids come through. For example, the phys ed teachers are going to do the intramurals. They would do the intramurals. The art teachers might do a portfolio class, an enrichment opportunity. So every teacher has to come up with something. Might be a little different than a math, science, or English, but certainly the creativity. That's where I talked about creativity from our teachers. We already had them send in draft schedules so we could make sure that we had a good look at it. And those are some of the things I included in there, that there's all kinds of enrichment opportunities that those teachers will run as well.
2 or 3 quick ones, just to clear my thoughts on it. During the Unit A negotiations, which this is a master schedule, so if this flies, it's a tremendous boost to all of us who might get involved in that. Staff duties, you alluded to that. The staff that has a couple of duties a week, that would be eliminated?
Yeah, right now what we're doing is, and that's probably agreement, yes, they would still be, if we needed them, in a situation, they would still be able to perform duties. Right now, the only duty that we have is lunch. We have other duties, but again, we'd rather have teachers working with kids or in their classrooms instead of walking halls. The first year I was here, we had students doing, staff doing, walking around the school doing supervision duties. We don't need it. So we did away with that, and we need them, for example, if we're short on substitutes and we need a teacher to cover class, they will still be able to do that. So it would be very similar to what we're already doing now, but the biggest chunk of people that we're using right now, that would be used differently, was the staff that are monitoring the lunch duties. Would not be doing that anymore. They'd be in the classrooms offering enrichment opportunities.
My last question right at the top of my head. In the academics, a teacher would identify young students below 75 or I need to see you for 30 minutes. What happens to that teacher, independent of any of those academics, that chooses A lunch versus B, half and half, 25 minutes? But some of the youngsters are choosing the opposite lunch. So how do they meet up?
Well, it depends. If it's mandated, they go to the teacher and they eat the opposite lunch. If you're going to pass and you're mandated to go, you go and you eat the opposite lunch. That's the flexibility we have. If you are in a situation where you have a choice, the calendars will be very clear ahead of time. They'll be posted. You have to make a decision. Well, if I really want to go to that portfolio class with Miss Donovan to work on our portfolio, I'm going to eat first because she's offering a B. So it's going to have to be some choice. That's where the choice comes in for kids.
Thanks, Bill.
Mr. Dahl.
Yeah, and what happens if a student is mandated by two teachers?
Yeah, that's something, there's actually some new scheduling software that would help us through that. We don't have that now, so we're going to have to do it by paper at first. So a teacher would give ordering passes where it's you'll duplicate, where you sign off and the teacher keeps their half. The student would just say, I have my other pass here, I could be with Miss Jones, and then we'll go to that other teacher. The other thing that we do to track that, because that's not the best way, is every week we're meeting, administration and guidance are meeting and tracking our students to see, we'll get those attendance sheets and see, the school's small enough, we know the kids that need help. And Mr. Russell mentioned the teachers are the only ones that can mandate kids. As administrators, when we meet with parents, when we meet with parents, geez, I'd love my son to do better in math, he needs more math help. That's when we in guidance come in and say, okay, you're going to stay in math, and work that out with the math teacher. So it gives us, as guidance and administrators, some flexibility too. We'll have to work through that part until we get the scheduling software.
Mr. Richardson.
I love to see out-of-the-box opportunities and scheduling things tried. One thing I was wondering about, are there any benchmarks that you have in place that say in 3 months this should happen? I know you have the data stuff, but I'm talking about the overall model. Is it working for Monomoy? And are there benchmarks that are going to let you know that?
I think the big two that we had up there were the D's and F's, C's, D's, and F's, or something we're going to look at, see, because we started, depending on when we started, March 7th, I believe, is the first progress report, so we have a nice clean time to start there to look at our students, and we collect that there now, kids are C's below, so we'll be looking at that one, and we'll look at overall average, academic average of all kids. So those are two big ones that we're going to be looking at right off the bat, which we'll be able to judge all our kids academically, whether they're improving or not.
I think an advantage here, if we launch this sooner rather than later, we have the first half of the year in each one of those categories that they can compare, all the data for the first half of the year with the schedule as it has been status quo versus a schedule with Power Hour, and to see, are there improvements in each of those areas, and then look at how does Power Hour need to get tweaked, or was the old schedule a better schedule?
So there is opportunity for adjustments.
100%, yes.
Ms. Long.
Thank you. I didn't even have my hand raised still.
You were going to.
Yeah. A couple questions. I hope they're not tedious, but just some details. So this basically puts all grades at lunch at the same time, 8 through 12.
Yes.
But if they're kind of on a rotating, they're going to do A, they're going to do B, and then whatever one they're not at, they're going to be at their enrichment program or special help. How many seats does the cafeteria have?
250.
250. And we have approximately 600 students. So you're anticipating that the other half is going to be somewhere.
Yeah, and we've talked about this. I think, in fact, initially what we're going to do is we've been working on this, is have maybe the upperclassmen and divide them up initially for the first couple days to first week to this. What I've talked to two other principals that have run this, and what our research shows is that that's the best way to start. Ultimately, everybody will find their way and it'll be fine, but initially that is going to be something we have to work out, what we're talking about, actually scheduling half the groups staggered lunch to get it going, and it'll take a little time for sure.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, well, everyone's going to want B-lunch, you know, they're going to want to push it off a little bit. Then what do you do with 600 students that want lunch all at the same time?
Yeah.
The cafeteria staff might not like it.
No, well, yeah, I think, cafeteria, we're going from an hour and 25 minutes to an hour, so I don't think it's, I think they're going to be happy about it. But I think the other part that I really didn't talk a lot about is student expectations. They're going to have expectations, there's some trust here. And, you know, back to what Mr. Duvall said, if a teacher asks you to go and, you know, you don't have, you need to go, right? If you, you know, if you're supposed to be at an intramural, some trust there that you're a very good student here and you've got this opportunity and trust that you need to be there. You know, we're going to be checking, but we shouldn't have to be chasing. So the students I have, and I have town hall scheduled with all the students, and we're going to meet and go through all these expectations, and they need to follow them or we'll cancel it. I mean, that's one of the things we'll put right in that. You know, this is a pilot, and if you don't hold up your end of the bargain, keeping the place clean, that's a big one, you know, and we do a good job here. But they're going to have some more trusts and some more freedoms because we think they deserve them, but they're going to hold their end of the bargain too. And they're also going to know, back to Ms. Richardson's question, they're also going to know the benchmarks that we're looking for, that their grade's going to improve because of this. And we're giving them time to do that. And if they work at it, they will. So that's just wanted to follow up there. We will have student expectations. That is a good concern. It's something that we were going to have to work on to stagger to get started.
Still going.
So,
No,
go ahead.
still going. Lunch supervision, so for taking the teachers out from supervising and putting them into enrichment and help, who's supervising in the actual cafeteria?
The administrators and resource officer, me, and substitutes.
Okay.
And also, I'm sorry, one more thing. We also had on part of our sign-up, if a teacher wanted to, because it is a duty time too, if a teacher wanted to volunteer 1 out of 7 of their days to help supervise, we got a handful of teachers that stepped up to do that. So we've got a number, we actually got more people than we do now to help supervise.
Are there going to be certain caps on the amount of students that can participate in each program? Such as if you have too many going into the art room at once, you have to sign up. Like what's the, and I guess this kind of goes into my next and last question, which is monitoring and tracking the students' activities and where they are in school. God forbid something horrible were to happen. You at least have a class schedule when they're in regular classes or they're in lunch A or B. But now you've got that we're trusting the students and that we kind of know where they all are, but how do we know where they all are in the building?
Yeah. Well, I think it's similar to lunch. We know they're at lunch, but we don't know specifically where they are. I mean, unless they're signed in, that's why the scheduling software will help out. Every school that's running, it's basically an hour lunch on paper. If we have to get a student dismissed, or we contact the student, we'll have the academic, when they sign up for an academic support for a teacher, we'll know where those students are. The enrichment, there will be a cap on the enrichments.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see how the turnout goes. That would be a good problem to have.
Well, it would be great if it was overflowed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think the straight answer is that it's lunch technically, and that will, yeah.
Ms.
Thank
Stout.
you.
I love the idea of how this will help the students that need academic or emotional social support. I think that's good. This is going to have 8th graders mixing with 12th graders during that hour.
Yes.
And is there a list and teachers assigned already to exactly what the enrichment things are?
Yes.
Okay.
And part 2 of that is for the 8th graders, because we know they're 8th graders. We've moved to the teaming model, as you know. The 8th grade teachers have done a nice job. And for those folks that don't know, we split the 8th grade in half, and they share the same teachers. So 75 kids, let's say, will share the same 5 teachers. These 75 share the same 5, and we've got them common playtime where they meet regularly to talk about those kids and keep it positive. It's a great model. Excuse me. Those teachers, and they're very nurturing. Students at this point are getting ready to move on, but those teachers have done a nice job already of kind of talking about what kids they want to invite, where, and it's kind of sub-scheduling group with those 8th graders to make sure that we keep a close eye on them.
Mr. Carpenter.
I'm not finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've got a few questions. As far as leaving the building goes, this has a longer time where kids are not so accounted for. How do we know if the second half of the year, especially towards the end of the year, having been at the high school for a number of years, they tend to want to get out, especially the seniors. So how do we...
They call it senioritis.
Yes.
That is a real thing. No, that's real. I mean, I think it goes back to accountability. I've always made my decisions based on the 99% of the people that are going to follow the rules and not the 1% that won't. So I think what goes back to that trust factor, we've got kids now that might try to leave the building, all right? 99% of the time they get caught. Like I said, we've got 130 cameras. We're a small school. So, you know, I think if kids are going to leave, they're going to lose the privilege. They're going to lose their draw tomorrow. We talked about that. We talked about in our handbook, I think it's a Saturday school, we're going to up the ante on that. If you leave during draw tomorrow because we're trusting you, you're going to sit in detention for the week. So there'll be some harsh consequences for that. So they lose privilege. I think it's the best way to send a clear message. So we gain that by having detention during draw tomorrow, especially those seniors. No senior wants to sit and eat lunch with me.
No,
now.
I'm sure that the high school's aware that in this community and all the other communities around, there are not just smoking marijuana, but there's confections. And so, you know, I've had painters and a lot of dealings with people that have gummy bears, you know, root beer candy and lollipops. And it's not, you know, they're very, very heavily mixed with marijuana. So when they have looser time, it's now at a higher risk of what might be going on. So do all the teachers know about these kind of things?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
They took a field trip to Colorado, the teachers said.
Well, yeah. And so can you give us some things that are specifically assigned for the kids, you know, what is set up for them to go to? Because they'll need to be a lot of things, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to have our Ms. Police will kind of give some examples
Okay.
next, if you don't mind.
Okay, no, that's fine.
I gave some on the list here, but they can give some big specifics.
And my only other concern is that we're taking time from academics. So I think for the kids that are behind, it will be very useful. I'm not as sure if the trade-off for the kids that are doing well when they're going to be missing government or something else, it's going to be
They
as
can get more
valuable.
government now,
Well,
right?
it was
You know,
offered
they can
during
spend
that
25
time.
minutes of government day now. In addition. Yeah, so, you know, I think it's what do you give up to get in a tight schedule, to give up 29 minutes to get 150? I'm willing to do that. And we're a school that's willing to take risks. We can't be the best if we don't take risks. If we just, the status quo, we're going to be average Joes.
Mr. Carpenter?
I just want to say, I fully support this, and Lord knows I've put back on Bill and his staff an awful lot on this, trying to kind of come up with something that I think makes sense. And I think the trade-off here, as Bill said, we're trading 1 minute of class time for the potential of getting about 125, 150 minutes of academic support time for students, and to address some of the concerns that I think Jackie and Sharon might have raised. At the present, we have every other week a 40-minute enrichment block where the kids go and do things all over this building, and it's 40 minutes of unstructured time, and it's been working really well for 2 years. So it's not that it's, there's I don't think we need to worry what's going to happen every day when the kids are at lunch, because that enrichment period is working for the school. I think Sharon mentioned that we'll have 8th graders and seniors mixing during this time. For the last 2 years, 3 years, we've had 8th graders and seniors have lunch together anyway. That's the way the schedule works. That's not an issue. Actually, as a parent who's had an 8th grader in this building, I think I've been thankful that he's had senior and upperclassmen role models that he's kind of grown from. I also think that I'll go throw my own son under the bus like I frequently do, but I think one of the great things that can happen here is I've got a son who a dinner conversation went one night. Rory, one of your teachers, saw me in the hallway and said that she'd like you to come spend some extra time with her after school each week. And he's looking at me like, I'm getting an A. Why would I do that? And I'm like, well, Do you ever think that she thinks you actually have promise, and that if you spent a little extra time, where you might be able to go with it? And I think this, for him, provides that opening. It's like not after school. He could actually go see her during the lunch block and launch, to that higher level, even though he's getting an A. So I think that there's great opportunities for the kids that are struggling, but this is also a wonderful opportunity for the kids that are succeeding. And I think that we're going to see, and I was at a high school that this was sort of the norm on the way the building operated. And I think what you see is kids who have a teacher who really inspires them, they're passionate about the subject, they're going to be seeking them out during these lunch periods. And so I think we're going to see a lot of supports for kids that struggle, but I think we're going to see kids that are really interested, be it art or Mandarin or history, but you can see kids finding that, finding and seeking out those teachers.
Mr. Russell.
Couple more questions. Bill, how's the reaction of the cafeteria worker staff? They see this condensed time with X number of kids during a time which the lunches are packed up and maybe go to classrooms or in corridors. They're comfortable with the idea?
Yeah, we met with Mr. Petrarca and went over this, answered his concerns. Like I said, we're going to monitor his concern. He's self-funding, so that was one thing he actually thought it would be an improvement because of the reasons we mentioned, eating later. But his piece of this too, they're excited for it. They want to see how it goes with the open lines. It's 30 minutes less because that transition time, 5 minutes built in all these lunches that we're wasting. And if we can have it in all the other schools, the school including the school with 2,600 people, they have one lunch in 1 hour and they fed everybody. And I think like anything else, after some time, people find out when the best time to go is and that kind of stuff. And not all our kids eat lunch in the cafe, don't buy lunch here anyways. So it's not 600 kids necessarily going into those lunch lines. We actually timed it. I think it takes about 2.5 minutes per lunch for our kids to be served. The CAF does a real nice job. So if you go 2.5, it's only about 10 minutes. If we had that situation where all the kids went first day and did that, it'd be more than 10 minutes. It could take a little while, 20 minutes. The first day, so I think we're in pretty good shape with that.
That's good. The idea, and back in the day, how difficult it was for extra help when you put a will and a shall onto staff and parents and kids, and it was always a challenge. I echo the comment that if in fact and I like the idea that it's a pilot. We've got 3 or 4 months to let's see if we can make this thing work because easy to say, but I agree with you. This is a dynamic experience, and someone once said years and years ago that it's a lot of pressure on the staff and on you folks and the kids to measure up to this, and pressure sometimes is a privilege. So it has a lot of offering to see if there's a nice turnaround. It's interesting. This came about this time of year when probably your strategic plan of last summer wasn't, you didn't have a thermal powers to include it then, and it reminds me a little bit of Mark Wilson, our middle school seminar experience in a sort of way. So there's a nice transition from, as we launch that, the kids would move up to this 8th grade experience through the high school and have a taste of some freedom in what it could do. So that I'll be anxious to see a May or June or July summary of what did we discover and how can we smooth it out and make this something that we could use as a banner.
Yeah, thank you. And by the way, it is in our school improvement plan. We want to do it right. We've been working on this for over a year. And Scott's right. Scott had some great input back, and we had multiple drafts, and that's where I want to give these teachers on here, those 5 teachers that have been relentlessly working on this, and we got to fix this, and the first drafts were really the concept was always the same, but how we got there took a lot of work, and they could have said, you know what, they were doing all this in their own time. We don't want to do this anymore, but they didn't. So. Ideally, probably would have been better start in September for sure, but I think this time is bad because it gives you a small amount of time to see what we have to fix before the end of the year. And the toughest time of year because, like Mr. said, it's going to be nice weather. It's going to be, people want to be outside. So if we can do it and do it well this time of year, we can do it any time of year.
you have other people that are?
Yes, I do. So, thank you. I'm going to invite up the students first, because I know they have to go home and study, right, for the vacation week. Kylie Childs, and I have the, Caitlin couldn't make it tonight, but Melanie Watson's going to join Kylie, and just a little background. There was always these rumors going around that we might have Josh Merrill, we might not, and, you know, because the drafts were going back and forth, and there were yes and no. And Kylie came and took it upon herself to schedule a meeting with me, and was impassioned by the concept of Jossamauer, and wanted, you know, to make sure the students had a voice. So I'll let her take it from there. But I was very impressed with her, and I asked her to come and share a student perspective. So Kylie and Melanie, thank you.
Hello, my name is Kylie Childs, and I'm a sophomore at Monomoy High School.
Hi, my name is Melanie Watson, and I'm also a sophomore at Monomoy.
Could you say it a little louder?
My name is Melanie Watson, and I'm also a sophomore at
Thank
Monomoy
you.
School.
Over the past couple of weeks, a few friends and I have been working on something we and many others feel strongly about. We have created a petition for the Jossamauer with signatures from over 150 students, ranging from 8th grade to seniors. In doing this, we are trying to stand up and show that students should have a voice and say on what is going on in our everyday school lives. We've created this petition because we heard rumors of this program not being a possibility. Once we heard this news, we were very disappointed, so we figured we could do something about it. We believe that Jossamauer would be very beneficial for the students and staff in our school. We have a legitimate issue with students who aren't able to stay after for a variety of reasons. Some students have to work to help support their family, and some have to get home to watch their younger siblings.
Alongside this issue, there is an abundance of students who have practices and games after school which conflict with being able to stay after. As many know, if students want to play in a school sport, they must be passing all of their classes.
We believe that grades would be improved greatly if athletes and other committed students had the extra time in the middle of the day to catch up with teachers. Looking ahead to college, students need to learn how to manage their time independently. This would give us an opportunity to learn this in a safe, structured manner. This teaches us how to manage our time and use it to our advantage as a growing student. The vast majority of our school is excited and grateful that we could have this privilege to improve our daily lives at Monomoy. We are willing to take on the responsibilities that come with this program.
We also understand it is our responsibility to not misuse this privilege. We believe that a pilot program should be implemented and that Jossamauer would improve our daily lives here at Monomoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have the petition if you'd like to see it.
Don't go away. Any questions of our students? Ms. Stout?
Did you write that?
I did, yes.
That is excellent.
Thank you.
Anybody else? You say you have a petition?
I do.
Do we need to submit that to it? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Any
you.
other comments you want to make off the top of your head?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wow, tough act to follow. Girls, thank you so much for your patience, but wonderful. So it's really nice to hear from our students, and now I just want to invite out there, we have a couple members of our little committee that kind of ran with us and going to go and just add a few pieces. If Ms. Terenzi is here and Ms. Police want to come up and say a few words.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelly Terenzi. I teach math here at Monomoy High School. And Jen Police, Director of Guidance. So we have been members of the JOSM team since its inception. It came out of our Struggling Learners Task Force when we were looking at our D's and F's, And like Bill addressed, Deb Donovan came in with this article, and here we are about a year later. We've worked really hard on this. I thought maybe we could address Ms. Stout's question about some of the things that teachers have stepped up to offer during this time. And I'm just going to, I'm looking at a schedule of, you know, teachers volunteering to offer enrichment and extra help. Each day there's between 15 and 21 academic overtimes being offered by our teaching staff. There are 55 teachers and counselors that are offering something every single day. This is providing a huge amount of support, as you know, compared to what we have now, which is currently nothing during the day. So 55 people voluntarily doing this is amazing. In fact, I'm on the MREA, and I just want to mention that when we were going through coming up with a memorandum of agreement about this, our MTA rep said something to the effect that if there was an administration that tried to get their staff to do something like this, it would be a hard sell. And he was very impressed by the fact that our staff wants to step up to the plate to solve problems and help kids. So, that being said, in addition to the academic overtimes and the targeted extra help, which is, voluntary, like I teach AP statistics, so I'll have my AP statistics kids welcome to have lunch with me for a whole hour once every 7 days, and many of them will take advantage of that. But I'll also have my academic overtime as everybody else does. But we have scheduled already, in hopes of this going through, Art of War, Tai Chi, intramurals, gaming, learn to fly a drone, de-stress, a book chat, best buddies, a current events group, Spanish conversation, newspaper, open art studio, Monomoy reads, which is run by our librarian, fitness, jazz band, women's a cappella, global studies, gardening, handbell choir, what's new in science, Italian, I'm looking through this, hold on, movie club, Chinese calligraphy, coach and team meetup, golf, intramurals, writing workshop, yoga, that's science on the 6th. I'm guessing that's because it's on day 6, but it must be some amazing science enrichment. International pen pals, Google Apps, theater tech training with Amanda, jazz band, scholarship applications, that must be run by guidance, improv, yoga, class advisorship, class meetings, peer tutoring, Monopoly, student council. So as you can see, we have already got such a wide variety of enrichment opportunities, in addition to amazing supports, academic supports. So we're really excited about this, as you can see. Do you have any questions for us? Yes.
Do you have to say my name? We're good.
Excellent.
How many of these programs are created by the teacher versus students? Because you guys have mentioned something that someone had started a book club, so.
Right now, the teachers have been charged with coming up with something, their own schedule. The students have talked to some teachers, and that's what we anticipate will further evolve once the students have the opportunity to.
And then my second question is, how do you anticipate, and I may have missed it, you might have addressed it, but doing your, what I would call your volunteer time to do this program versus your prep time for your classes? I know that sometimes teachers do that during their lunch break.
Right, right. So our prep time it'll be affected as our class time is, it'll be a little bit shorter every day, but, we still have our, we still have our prep time. It'll be fine with prep time.
You still have the same amount of prep time?
Yeah, pretty much.
Just a lot of different.
In terms of ratios, yes.
It's the same number.
It's the same number of blocks. We're not losing any prep time.
Just the minutes changed.
Right.
Thank you.
Ms. Stout?
This is helpful. Of the 55 teachers, are they offering, that includes people who are doing remediation and enrichment, is that right?
Yes, a total of 55.
And so people are volunteering like one day or all the days to do remediation?
Every day.
Okay, so certain teachers are doing remediation every day.
Yeah, so it depends. It's up to the teacher to use their discretion. So for instance, of the 7 days, I am offering academic supports 5 of 7 days.
Okay.
And I'm an academic, well, I don't like to say that, but I'm a math teacher, yeah.
So for all the academics that the kids take, and they may have problems with 4 of them.
Sure.
Some of the kids will they have every teacher available to them
Yes.
for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Every teacher
many
who
days?
assigns work to, anybody in the building, even the art teachers, are offering academic overtime for students who need support with their work. It's just a matter of how, if you have a larger student need, then you're going to offer more academic supports than a teacher who doesn't. They'll offer more enrichment.
Okay, so math and English and science and social studies will offer several days a week to their students that they have.
Yes.
Okay. Then the enrichment ones, how many enrichment classes do you have scheduled for each day?
So we have about 20 to 30 total academic supports, and then everything else from the 55 would be enrichment. It's pretty balanced. What's one of the things that we've been really working hard on is the logistics of that, making sure that there's balance. One of the other things that you should know is, like, in the math department, not only am I offering academic overtime to my individual students, we as a department are making sure that we have Algebra 1 extra help available to anybody taking Algebra 1. So I'm offering one of those, and I will have students from me or the other 2 teachers that teach Algebra 1. So we're covering all our bases so that any day of the week, 8th, 9th, and 10th graders have math extra help opportunities covered 100% of the time.
And they'll be required if they have C, D, or F.
Yep.
So do you think you might have an overload in this to help?
Well, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did was give the teachers discretion to manage that in a 7-day period. And we had a lot of conversations with Mr. Carpenter about this, and we've figured out a way to do that. So if I have 22 students who fall into that category, I'm not going to assign them all on the same day. So that's why I personally have a wider number of academic times.
I think
Because my need is there, yeah.
you also have to think of it as the proverbial village taking care of a child. So a kid who's doing poorly in Kelly's algebra class likely is also doing poorly in some other classes too. So, so her group of 22 students, when I would kind of do my back of the map match, may look more like 5 to 7 students at any given time, because the other kids are getting supports in other areas that they need help. It's not that they're only struggling in math, that they're getting supports across the curriculum.
Although some just have trouble in math.
Yes. Yeah, math. I think math is an area that is challenging, and yeah, definitely.
Mr. Russell.
Follow-up on Sharon's, just to clarify, and I know you're going to launch this idea. Let's say, and it's voluntary, I understand that, but if volunteerism doesn't include all, and I'm speaking really of the academic staff who would have remediation, or even kids with B's and A's. So let's assume in the past few months you've worked on this, so the answer must be no, it can't happen. That there are 3 or 4 or 5 staff members who say that that's not for me during the power. I fully like the idea of an awesome power hour, but I can't offer the kids because I kind of like staff and extra help. So good luck. How have you addressed that issue?
When we addressed this in terms of writing our memorandum of agreement, and the way we presented it to our staff was everybody was expected to participate. So it is a written expectation. I suppose that's where teacher discretion comes in, and there will be teachers who, just like anything, will, feel that they don't need to offer as much academic, and then the conversation will happen, well, what are you going to offer? And there'll be enrichment opportunities, or there'll be supervisory opportunities, which the program needs, obviously, to run.
I say it as a prospective parent. If I had two youngsters in the 9th and 11th grade, and they were struggling, but they happened to be on a team or a section of block with a science teacher is a no-go, or a math teacher doesn't involve themselves, that would be problematic.
Yep, that would be, that's not the expectation of this program. The expectation is that everybody is offering academic overtime, who is a, I don't like to use the term academic teacher, but, core academic teacher. Everybody is expected to offer it. So there's nobody's getting out of that. So I don't anticipate that would happen, and that would have to be addressed, obviously, at the administrative level if that were the case.
Sure. Terry, I think the way to look at it from a contract perspective is when we negotiate the contract, there are duties, and what we're largely doing here is waiving the typical duty that's happening for the teachers performing this different student support enrichment power hour.
Yeah.
I would imagine
follow-up, and I guess Bill would know this. Does this cover the 900 hours? Obviously, with that brief amount of minutes per week, we're still above the 900 or the 950. I lost track of the mandated hours.
990.
I would imagine that the word will get out to parents as time goes on that this is happening. And I would anticipate parents putting a little pressure on the teachers who might be teaching their student. If the parent thinks they need a little extra help, maybe they would put a little parental pressure on the people who might be less inclined.
It's always good when parents are there advocating for support. Absolutely.
Ms. Long.
It's a tiny one. Just to follow up on Terry's comment, so the expectation of this pilot is that there will be no children staying after school for extra help anymore, even though there are teachers that may not participate.
I don't think that's true. The pilot is not to replace after-school extra help, because some students will, they enjoy extra help after school. They come. I have a couple of kids that come faithfully twice a week.
Because they want to.
Yeah.
But what about the students that you're requiring to stay after school for extra help? I mean, obviously, this is kind of avoiding the child who you're telling needs to come in for after school help, but then they just don't do it.
Right. So right now, we can't require, we can strongly encourage any child to come after school for help. And I, and Jen, we both have called homes and said, we really need, he's telling me he can't stay after, he doesn't have a ride. Parents are always like, yes, he does, and still some.
He's not there.
He's not there.
No.
So the teachers are still going to reach out for, and suggest after-school extra help if kids still need it, and this isn't addressing that.
So
it's not a replacement at all.
Where does the student go that has the teacher, which is, I think this is not going to happen, but hypothetically, where does the student go who needs the extra help, who wants the extra help, but doesn't have one of the teachers that's participating? Where do they go with that? Where do they go, I need extra help in algebra, or I'm enjoying this and I want? You're talking about students who do voluntarily stay after school for this. Who do they go and talk to and say, gee, can I get on her team because I know she does this during power hour?
Well, I think all students will have access to extra help during the JOSM time. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
And then what about,
every teacher is required.
Yeah.
They are required.
Yes.
What about the student who you're highly, strongly suggesting they stay after school and they don't? How are we going to help with that number of decreasing and increasing the grades and decreasing the ones that don't show up if we're not enforcing them within school to do it during the JOSM hours?
We are enforcing it. That's what it's for, because we have the ability to control the environment when they're here. We don't at 2:30. So when they are here, we can mandate what they're doing. And that's exactly where this derives
So there
from.
will be a teacher, whether that teacher is participating in this program or not.
Yes.
All teachers are,
Everybody.
Don't want to see anybody missed.
We require a child to go to academic overtime, if they don't show, our first line of defense is not to make it punitive.
It's the counselor.
We're going right to, we have a protocol for this. So we go to the counselor then,
Grabs a student.
and then,
Follows up.
yep,
Got it.
parent,
Thank
we follow up with parents too.
We need to move along, folks. Ms. Stout?
Could you, for maybe our next meeting, bring in a schedule of this? Because it's much easier to see if you have a schedule than, thank you, that would be helpful.
Bring that one.
I want to ask Mr. Carpenter a question. This proposal from the staff and the teachers and Mr. Burkhead, the purview question. As far as your understanding of the school committee's role in this, do we have a need, or do you have a need for us to vote to allow this, or do we merely need to vote to support this?
I would say, I don't think you need to vote to allow it. I think that what Bill's looking for is just to make sure that the school committee supports this. I think this is a good thing to pilot, and I think it'll be interesting. And I know that Donna will hold us accountable for having Bill report back at the end of the year his data from the beginning of the year and second half of the year. And I think that's what we should be encouraging each of our schools and our teachers to take risks and to try things and demonstrate that if they work, great. Let's keep doing it, and if not, let's rethink and go on from there.
I'm going to suggest that you raise your question with one of the administrators. Yeah. Okay, directly after the meeting. Any other questions or comments from the school committee? Mr. Duvall.
I just want to say I'm very impressed with everybody that presented on this tonight, and I think it is a very, very positive program for Monomoy. And I think most of our questions tonight are going to be truly answered this summer when he comes back and tells us how the pilot program works.
Agreed.
I think it's a great thing.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
I had a question.
Ms. Stout.
I request that we postpone this for 2 weeks. Or is our next meeting in 2 weeks? I believe it is. So that not only the other members of the committee could be here, but so any parents that are away on vacation that might want to be here can be here.
So I interpret that as a motion to table the action item. Is there a second on that motion? I don't hear any second on that motion. Is there a motion? Mr. Duvall?
I move that we, this is not going to use the right word, that we support the Power Hour pilot program at the high school.
I'd second it.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Ms. Stout is opposed?
I'm not opposed to the thing, I'm just opposed to doing it.
Well, are you voting in favor of the motion or not?
No, not at this time.
That's one no.
That's a no.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
I just want to say it sounds jawsome to me.
I'm excited.
Very good, Mr. Chair.
Take that, Sturgis and Nauset. Okay, moving along. 2017-2018 school choice and projected enrollments by grade. Mr. Carpenter, I presume.
So in your packets, there's a folded sheet with a little bit of yellow. All I want to do is, quickly walk you through, just sort of what our current enrollment is, what our projected enrollment is, what our current class sizes are, what we see the class sizes being for next year. What I would like to ultimately get from the committee is each year a school committee needs to take a vote as to whether or not to accept students through the school choice program. So we can, as a school district, say, no, we don't want to accept students in the school choice program. That that means, that still means that every child that we have already accepted stays with us. I will hopefully show you that we have plenty of space in some classrooms and in some of the schools for school choice students, and it would make sense for us to open our doors and continue to open our doors to school choice. So on the left grid here, we have the class sizes and enrollment at Chatham Elementary, Harwich Elementary, the middle school, and high school. And as I've said, we've tried to keep the elementary class sizes averaging 18 plus or minus 1. We have had a bubble that has been moving through Harwich Elementary School that's currently breaking at grade 4, that will be moving into the middle school next year. At Chatham Elementary, there's a little bit of a bubble in our second grade that will be moving through where the class sizes are 19. If we look at the middle grid, the middle grid looks at the enrollment this year compared to last school year, and where do we lose kids? And you'll notice that at grade 6 is when we lose a number of students to school choice out to other districts and to the charter school. We also see at grade 9, you'll notice that there were 25 students that we lost at grade 9. I want to emphasize that in any given year, 20 of those 25 are students that leave for the tech school. And you know, I do not look at us as competing with the tech school. I think that that's a good option for many families. So, so what we have seen at the high school level is, more often than not, are students that are leaving us for more athletic reasons and than academic reasons. We've talked about things that we want to see at the middle school, and everything from the Chromebook initiative to the seminar series that has been going on this year to help bolster retention at the middle school. So looking next year at class sizes, we don't know what the kindergarten class sizes are going to look like quite yet. Kindergarten enrollment isn't supposed to happen until March 1st, so we'll have a better feel March 1st what the class sizes might look like at kindergarten. But you'll notice, one of the things that that we also have talked about is just the how class sizes stack up between what we anticipate at Chatham Elementary School versus Harwich Elementary School, and there's a few students at each grade level different here and there. In some cases, Chatham's a little bit higher. In some cases, Harwich Elementary School is a little bit higher. But again, staying within that class size guideline. I think one of the challenges we'll have next year is how to handle the bubble of students that come up at the middle school. And I think, in the ideal world, it would be fantastic if we could continue to have a fifth grade that has teams of 2, but adding 2 teachers isn't really in the financial cards to go up to 2 additional teachers at the 5th grade level, because there was attrition at 6th grade last year. There's the capacity for us to shift a 6th grade teacher into 5th grade and have the class sizes at 5th grade be hovering just below 20, and the 6th grade classes to be hovering just below 17. Again, staying within the guideline that we've talked about for middle school. So that just kind of gives you an overview of what the class sizes look like in terms of where we have capacity or space. It looks like in most of our schools and at most grade levels, we have space for school choice children to join us, except for at grade 3 at Chatham Elementary School That one is running at class sizes of 19, which is at capacity. We're trying not to have classes over 18, so we're full there. It looks like kindergarten at Harwich Elementary School will be full. We don't know that quite yet, but it's looking like that will be full. We know that grade 4 at Harwich Elementary School is going to be full because we still have the tail end of a Harwich bubble coming up there. And the class sizes for 5th grade at the middle school are going to be full. But outside of that, there's space to have students join us. The vote that the school committee makes each year when it comes to school choice is not by grade level or by building. It's just a simple, do we open our doors to choice? And then we would do a posting in the newspaper and on our website saying, here's the grade levels and schools that we have openings. And if there are more students than what I have in the far column there on the available seats, those seats would be open to lottery, but but the school committee only has a overall vote. The other thing I want to emphasize is that we've been trying to manage the total number of students that are breaking upon the high school shores. And if you look here, we have the current enrollment at the high school in grades 8 through 12 is 595. We see it going up to 608, and looking out there in the future, by the time my daughter's a senior here, we'll be just a few students shy of the 700, which is what this building was built for. And again, we're trying to make sure that we're managing that cohort as it's coming up here, so that we don't find ourselves, as I said to the Chatham FinCom yesterday, the last thing in the world they want me to do is to come back to them in 5 years saying, oh, by the way, we've done a great job. Now we need an extension on the high school. We've been trying to manage the cohort sizes so that any group of 5 still find themselves within that 700.
We won't need any portables then.
No portables.
Is there a motion? Mr. Duval.
I move that we vote to keep Monomoy Regional High School a choice school district.
Second. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion. Ms. Stokes.
I'm not sure I'm reading this correctly. I know that our current 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade to 7th grade have some more students than some that have more needs. And so are you saying that there's a 4th grade teacher coming up to take care of that for next 5th grade?
What I'm saying here is that there would be capacity within the middle school to shift someone down to create a 9th section in 5th grade.
And what about, that wouldn't come from next year's 7th grade, this year's 6th grade? Because that also has the same needs.
So no, it keeps, if you look in the center box, the class sizes that this would have would be here for
next year.
Yep.
But there are, you had given us numbers of special needs and different grades, and that was the one that was 10 higher than others. 4th grade and 10th or 6th grade. It was 34 rather than 24 was the average. So I would just request that it not be from that grade because it's a more needy group.
Our vote is, are we a choice district or not a choice district? That's it. I mean, that's what we vote on.
Okay, but this is the time to talk about this.
No, that's our choice, either to be a choice district or not to be a choice district.
Yeah, and I guess I think the other thing to clarify, when we're looking at the class sizes, we're really looking at the class sizes in the academic classes. So the student support structure of special education still there. It's happening above and beyond what these class sizes are.
So how many were you expecting for that grade? 3? And we'd have 6 teachers.
So these are your academic classroom teachers, not the special education teachers.
All right, we're going to move along to the vote. This is a perfectly valid discussion to have, but not as part of this motion. If we want to have an agenda item sometime to discuss how well the school administration is hiring and assigning students, I think that's a perfectly valid agenda item. But for tonight, we're only voting yes or no to the school choice school.
But this is the first time we've seen this.
And it's a perfect topic if you want to put it on the agenda for another night for a longer discussion about how well they're doing.
But what we're doing then is we're doing it backwards.
But are we not going to vote for school choice if
No,
we're
no,
not
no.
satisfied as to how they're doing it?
No, but it seems backwards to have a discussion on those factors after we've already.
On the other hand, if we don't vote to do school choice, it'll be irrelevant to discuss those factors.
All right, I vote for school choice then.
Is there a question about the motion or the
Only
second?
that Mr. Duval's, I support it, but I think the first time to our secretary, he said Monomoy Regional High School.
I say high school, not district. I'm sorry.
He won't do that again.
And just
Terrible.
Mr. Carpenter?
Just in terms of timeliness, it's important for us to have the vote, to have the posting, to have invite families to apply, so that we can provide those that want to potentially come here by choice. And we're already getting a number of phone calls that we can give those families some certainty sooner rather than later.
So the motion has been amended to include the entire school system? And the second?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Next, strategic plan update, communication, monitoring student progress with MAP K-7 and Aspen 5-12.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm Mark Wilson, principal of Monomoy Middle School. It's my pleasure to be able to share with you some insights into a decision that the school committee made last year to bring measures of academic progress, or MAP, to the Monomoy School District. We're currently administering the assessment in grades K through 8. This is your first chance to see what that data looks like from both a student, a parent, and a teacher perspective, and to get some look at grade level data for the middle school. There's really 6 reasons why the district decided to use MAP and why we use it at the middle school. It gives us information to inform our instruction using valid, reliable, and real-time data. One of the nice things about MAP is we get the data back within 24 hours after we close the testing window, as opposed to MCAS or PARC, where the turnaround time of the data is up to 5 or 6 months between when we take the test and we get the data back. We can also measure the growth of every student over time, regardless of whether they're on, above, or below grade level performance, even if the standards change. The MAP is computer adaptive, so when a student sits in front of the computer and takes the test, each time he or she answers a question correctly, the next question will get harder and harder and harder and harder. There's no cap to the exam, and students can take questions that will bring them up to postgraduate work. There's some phenomenal questions in the bank. There's over 15 million questions in the bank. And as long as you have a lexicon of 100 words, you can take the test. So we can do it from K right on up through really postgraduate. It's really kind of neat. That's, again, a big difference from MCAS, where you're only assessed on grade level expectations. This allows our students to show that they're operating, well beyond grade level, or in some instances at grade level or below. One of the pieces you'll see tonight is it helps us engage students and families in goal setting, the student progress goal setting report. I've given you a copy, and I'll kind of walk you through how we have conversations with students and their families to help use the data to set some goals to improve their own performance. And it gives us some evidence-informed instructional practices. We can look at our practices across the building and see where we're strong in particular areas and what opportunities we have to improve our instructional practices in different content. I'll show you that when we get to the teacher report. It also lets you evaluate programs. For instance, we brought Math and Focus into the district, so we'll be able to get a good sense of how our students are progressing against norms as we take a look at that program and see how it plays out on a day-to-day basis in our classrooms. and allows us to predict how our students will do on MCAS or other PARCC assessments so that we can provide appropriate intervention if we see students who are struggling. So those are the 6 reasons we brought to the district, and I'm going to walk you through the reports now that each, from 3 different perspectives, from a parent perspective, from a student perspective, and from a staff perspective. I'm going to start with what the MAP results look like for our students. They're very eager to get their reports. They look like this from a student perspective. We shared all of these at the middle school. We actually mailed them home on Friday before the break. We gave a presentation to parents on how to read MAP results on Thursday before the break. And I'm going to give a repeat of that presentation on Tuesday after the break. And I'll walk you through fairly quickly what this looks like. I passed them out to you earlier. This is a sample student from the middle school. You'll see 2 blue bars. On the left-hand side is how they scored in the fall of 2016. And the bar on the right is the W, the winter for 2017. If we look at the top one for mathematics, at the beginning of the year, the student had a score of a 200. And the dotted line that cuts across at 209 is what their projected growth was for the end of the school year. So if a student could get to 209 by the school year's end, that would be a typical growth for this particular student. As you can see, by the winter, they've gone to 213, so they've actually exceeded their end-of-year expectation, and we'll be able to adjust our expectations for them to be higher than that for the spring scores. You also see MAP breaks down the content in 4 areas that we can look at for strength: operations and algebraic thinking, numbered operations, measurement and data, and geometry. This particular student has relative strengths in number operations and geometry, which is why those areas are green, and a potential area of growth in operations and algebraic thinking. The nice part about this data is we can actually target specific areas for instruction through our seminar classes and our regular classroom instruction. On the other side of the coin, in the reading side, the student experienced a bit of a drop between the fall and the winter. Again, the goal for the end of the year was to go from 219 to 223. The student dropped to 217 in the winter. And you see that they have an informational text as a relative area of concern for them. And that's an area that we can also target through classroom instruction or our seminar blocks. And the interesting part about MAP is it also gives a Lexile score for each student. That Lexile range is a number that represents a text that a student can read with 75% comprehension independently. So it's at the right level of instruction for them. We can steer them towards finding books in that Lexile range. It means they can read it on their own and be able to gather new information, but not be frustrated because the book's too hard for them. And there's a goal-setting, a student action plan for this, so students can actually sit with their teachers and map out what they want to do between now and the end of the school year to help improve their opportunities for growth, for instance, in operations and algebraic thinking or informational text. I'll just step back for a second. I did run a seminar class. Bill talked earlier about Jostrom Hour. In the fall, I ran a seminar class for some 5th grade students on environmental issues. We had a blast. And when I shared students their winter data, they were so ecstatic to take a look at it, see what kind of growth they had made, and even where they'd slipped back a little bit from time to time, put some plans in place to be able to grow from now until the end of the school year. So it was very powerful for students to see this data. MAP results for parents. They can get a copy of that student goal setting report, but they also get an end-of-year student progress report. We're providing that to parents who show up to our training session on Tuesday after the break as an early peek into their students' performance. We will give these out every year at the end of the year, and I'll walk you through the bars here. The blue bars are the student scores for the fall and the winter. We actually have the summer from last year because we put our toe in the water with a pilot with this in spring. You see the district grade level mean. So this particular student is slightly below the grade level mean in mathematics for Monomoy and slightly above the grade level mean for reading. So this student is relatively stronger in reading than in mathematics. And then you'll see the winter scores there. And we don't have the orange bar at the moment because we didn't close the testing window yet. And you'll see on the right-hand side where the students' range is on the percentile compared to the rest of the nation. For the fall of 16 in mathematics, the student was in the 22nd percentile nationally. And by the winter of 2017 in grade 5 has almost doubled to the 41st percentile. In reading, again, the student's relatively strong. In the fall, it was 81st percentile and slipped a bit to the 70th percentile, but still is above average nationally. So you can get a sense of, from this report, how a child measures up to the other 30 million or so students who are taking this assessment across the country. You also get a breakdown into the different areas. If you look at math, you'll see that this student is generally average in operations, algebraic thinking, and number sense, and low average in measurement and data and geometry. And for the reading, they're high average in literature, vocabulary acquisition and use, and average in informational text. And we can use this information to set up our seminar classes. And math results for a teacher. Very helpful. You can break them down. It's hard for me to do this. I'd rather be at the screen. Can I stand at the screen and be captured by? Is that okay?
Partly now. Is there a microphone?
Can I go back and forth? Oh, you want to be? Oh, can you be awesome? That'd be even better. So my assistant will point to the blue box where mathematics is highlighted, and we see this particular student. This is just a sample student. There is no Vernon Sobrio. This is just a sample student. People explaining the data. Scored 248, and on the left-hand side, you see that's the 92nd percentile. So Vernon here, our fictional student, is very, very strong in mathematics. It's predicted that he will score an advanced on a Massachusetts MCAS assessment, and that Vernon is on track to do very well for the college readiness. Each of the other bars point to reading at 219. If we were to click on that, it would bring us to where Vernon stood in comparisons with the national norms and what their projected performance would be on MCAS, language usage, and science. Here at Monomoy, we only are administering math and reading, and we have not gone down the path of doing language usage or science. But those bars at the top are color-coded, so they can very quickly alert teachers to areas of potential concern. Vernon is very strong in math, which is why that's blue. It's solid in reading. There's really no concerns for this particular student. And if they were if we bring this to the Jocelyn Hour, this is not likely a student who's heading off to academic support. They're probably going to head off to one of the elective opportunities for the Jocelyn Hour. However, language usage and science are areas of concern, with language usage being the biggest area of concern. That's why that's in red. The middle section where it talks about instructional areas is probably the most helpful for staff. You can see where this particular student is strong. There's a relative strength in geometry down at the bottom for 257, and then suggested area of focus around operations and algebraic thinking. And if you click on that box, which would be interactive on the screen, it would take you to the specific skills that Vernon is ready to learn in operations and algebraic thinking. It's ready to develop these skills within that RIT range, and then it just gives you a description of the actual standards that you need to be working on to help the student make progress. So it's an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool for helping us chart individual student strengths and individual student opportunities for growth. And teachers, thank you. Perfect, you're awesome, thank you. And these reports help teachers create structured groupings within their classroom. If you're doing some flexible classroom grouping, you can pull up your whole class. Again, this is a fictional class just for illustration purposes. And you can see how students fall in various groupings. To the far left are those students who are struggling the most. There's one individual in the upper left-hand corner who struggles quite a bit in literature. And then if you go to the far right, those are your students that are kind of the high flyers who are very strong. And are likely to have 2 or 3 years in terms of their skill range from the far left to the far right. So just to give you a sense of it, right now in 5th grade we have students that read at about the 2nd grade level, some of them that we're working with, and we have some that read at a postgraduate level. So they're all in the same classroom, in a heterogeneous classroom. It's pretty amazing when we're asking staff to differentiate for that level of need, and we now have some tools that help us do that. So you might look at this chart, and when you have a TA coming into your room to provide some support, do flexible grouping, and can identify which groups of students that TA might work with and what some of the skills they might work with. Same thing for the special education teacher, classroom teacher. Just divide and conquer and work with the students in the right target skills. And school administration, we can do the same thing, and we are doing the same thing for our seminar block. Just imagine this for the whole grade level instead of a classroom, and we got 157 names on the chart. And going through that, we can look who's to the left, who could be use some small group seminars that we're running, and who would be on the far right would be the students that we could look to use our large group seminars and some enrichment activities for our students in our school. We make those changes each quarter. In other words, we're redesigning the entire schedule for the whole student body 3 times a year, which is a lot of work, but it's going extremely well, and staff and students have bought into it, and it's been very smooth. And my favorite part of this presentation is I can get to short amount of them and look at reports that are ordinary for us, but maybe not so familiar to our listening population here. It's called the Foursquare Report. In the upper right-hand quadrant is the spot we want most of our students to fall. That's a high achievement and high growth quadrant. On the left-hand line is their growth percentile on the y-axis, and on the x-axis is their achievement score. And if we get above 50 in achievement and above 50 in growth, that's the upper right-hand green box. The upper left-hand kind of tan box is if students are not at high achievement, but they have high growth. That's my second favorite sort of category. It means they are catching up quickly to their peers. They're above the line in that tan box. And if they continue with high growth, they will move into that far right-hand category. In the lower right is high achievement and low growth. We can live with it. It's not our favorite box, but we're not particularly concerned about students that are in that quadrant, particularly because some of them are going to fall naturally there. If we have students reading at a postgraduate level, they do not have a lot of room for growth. They could show up tomorrow with a cold and they could have low growth but high achievement, and they would fall in that lower right-hand quadrant. We're not particularly worried about them. If they remain in that low growth, they will start to slide to the other side, and that's the part we track. The place we don't want to live in is in the lower left. Students that fall in that quadrant and remain there too long are not making progress, they're not catching up to their peers, and they're going to be at high risk for needing remedial coursework as they go through, get to the high school level, not passing all their classes or not graduating on time. So I'll walk you through the data for each grade level and each subject. This is a nice story through time, so I love telling it. Grade 5 reading. Each dot represents one of the students in our school. We can mouse over the dots and identify specifically who that student is, and click on their dot and drill down into their actual performance and look at their strengths and weaknesses.
So this is a real, this is not a sample like
This is real. This is Monomoy Middle School grade 5 reading between the fall and the winter of this year. And the story here is nothing to cry about, nothing to crow about. We got a median growth percentile of 49. We'd like to be 50. 50 would be typical. Would be very similar to any other middle school, anywhere else that is teaching students and administrating MAP. 50 is average. We did all right. We had 71 out of 140 students who met or exceeded their projected growth for the year, which is pretty nice. Right? So that's the half of the students that met or exceeded their projected RIT score. And they pretty much just equaled their end-of-year score. That's the 104.5%. If they were expected to go from a 201 to 210, most of them went from 201 to 210, and there were a few of them that went to 211 or 212. That's how you get to the other above 100%. Grade 5 math was a fairly similar story. This is probably our biggest opportunity for growth in the middle school. Our growth percentile is 42. 40 to 60 is kind of normal. We'd like this to be 50 or higher, so we have an opportunity for growth here. 66 out of 141 students met or exceeded their end-of-year RIT score, and just barely. So that's that 80.3 growth. I love this story because it means the longer you stay in the middle school, the better you do. You're going to see this as we go through the slides. Grade 6 reading. More students are focused in the upper right-hand quadrant, and that's reflected in the data. Again, 40 to 60 for our median growth is normal. As we start to get 60 to 80, that becomes really good news. Anything above 80 is extraordinary. 88 out of 134 students in grade 6 met or exceeded their end-of-year RIT score. That's almost 2/3. And they almost doubled their end-of-year RIT score. If we got to 200%, that would be a doubling of what we expected them to do. Fairly similar story in grade 5. Grade 6 math. Again, our median growth was 60. 40 to 60 is normal. Any number above 60, I'm happy. Count as 83 out of 135 or 61%, and they're pretty much right on their end of year projected RIT score. This is not helpful at all.
Successful.
Goodness for that.
Here's grade 7 reading. Basically, one of the nice things about a 4-square is it's very easy to understand. You can very quickly see how the school as a whole is doing. 68 growth percentiles are very positive for us. 89 out of 124 students met or exceeded their end-of-year scores. And they met or exceeded them by a lot. That's why we're at 247%. And grade 7 math. Yep. Median growth percentile of 70. We're starting to reach some fairly rarefied air there. Like I said, if we can get to 80, it would be phenomenal. 79 out of 25 kids, 63%. And not quite double their end-of-year RIT score. I love these slides. Like I said, they're easy to understand and they tell a good story. The longer your students stay with Monomoy Middle School, the better they're doing. And it's hard to argue with the data. So for those households that are thinking about where to send their students at the end of grade 5, I share this data with the public. Take a look at it. Your kids are in good hands. We also shared some resources for building reading and math skills at homes, things that parents could just do that are not tedious or boring. There's some games and different activities. I shared a copy of those with you and you just kind of review them on your own. Some of them are fairly logical, like playing chess or Stratego or other thinking games like that at home. Apples to Apples, if you're familiar with that game, all of them that build some vocabulary and language and creativity are all very good things to help students keep their skills sharp. And the other thing that's helpful I share with parents is how to use the Lexile score to help your child find the just right book, or to use some of the award-winning book lists on the Young Adult Library Services Association, YALSA, to track down books that are in the right Lexile, that are in a topic that your child really loves to read about, trucks or horses or whatever. So they're reading books that are going to help them grow, but not frustrate them by being too difficult or bore them by being too easy. So that was pretty much the presentation we gave Thursday before the break, and we'll give it again Tuesday after the break from 6:30 to 7:30 at the middle school. I expect we had a small but very engaged group on Thursday before break. We sent the scores out on Friday, and we're expecting a lot more people will come up next Tuesday to kind of see the overview of the math data. So there you go. I wasn't as long as Bill. I hope that's okay. So that's measures of academic progress and how we're using it at the middle school to identify both, our seminar blocks and groupings and kind of track how we're doing as a school. And the other thing the school committee had asked was how we're using Aspen. A year ago, we had a lot of concerns from parents that grades were not being inputted in a timely fashion, that when they went on Aspen to look up homework assignments, they weren't able to track them down. So far to date this year, I've had one phone call on that. So we've done a much better job of consistently entering the information that parents are looking for so they can keep current with assignments.
This school year or this calendar year?
This school year.
This school year. Ms. Stout?
I just want to say this is very impressive. And when it breaks down things into a specific area in math, do the teachers have, they know which things at their grade level they're behind in, or maybe a prior grade level that they didn't get?
It's a great question. So let me play this out from the role of view of the seminar classes that we do. So we'll find 5 or 6 or 7 students that are maybe struggling a bit with measurement data. So the profile from classroom observation and from the map data will say these students need some skills, and they're similar in their background. We'll group them together. I have staff members that are interested in working with small group math interventions. For our summer block, that's where those 7 students will go. They go there every other day for the entire quarter. So they're going to have 22 lessons on measurement data. And at the end of the quarter, we administer the MAP assessment, and we see what growth they've made, and students can move out of those and into some of our elective seminars, or it might show up that they need some support and assistance in informational text. So we regroup them again at the end of each quarter. And the drill down is pretty easy. Here's the skills they need to work on. So that was that report I showed you, that if a student, or you got 7 students that are all at 215 to 219 on the red, here are the skills they need to work on. So from that perspective, it's very helpful for designing targeted lesson plans.
Thank you.
Mr. Russell.
Follow-up, Mark. At the end of the 7th grade, the data that's collected, either hard copy or computerized, are they sent off to the 8th grade councils up here?
Yes.
Follow-up question. And it's really good, Bill. At some point, a year or 2 from now, wouldn't this be, did you mention, Mark, that this goes through 12th grade with postdoctorate?
It does go, as far as you want to take it.
As we successfully launch this pilot of Awesome Hour, I don't know, is this an hour test 3 times a year, about an hour?
It takes about an hour and 20 minutes, I'd say.
So at some point, I wonder if it would be worthwhile in a year or so to find out, would this be a great snapshot for the 8th and 9th grade kids to see the continuation, or to diagnostically say, here are these remedial teachers in the high school, and it's already in that left-hand lower column, that it's stagnated there. And they probably know that anyways, based on just being a veteran teacher, but it's such a terrific tool. And Mark, last thing, did you say there are this program is nationwide? There are enough to say there's like in the day when I was a kid, when you had the Iowa test of basic skills.
Oh, yeah.
So this now is the new version of millions of youngsters at grade level are taking this test, or at least
Yes, that's a good way to describe it. I'll get you the exact count, but I believe about 40% of the districts in Massachusetts are using MAP. I'll give you that list of districts.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Ms. Richardson, what do you think? You're our contents on strategic evaluation.
Processing.
Any other questions, comments, Mr. Carpenter?
I know Robin can share how they're using it how they're using MAP at the elementary level, and at the high school level, they are starting to use MAP at the lower grade levels because they knew that you were going to go there, Terry. So for the 8th grade, I mean, it's a natural tool to use. It was kind of interesting, when we were looking at the strategic plan, we had sort of talked about, okay, how would we use Aspen to go and communicate student progress, and I think what's been really clear as we've gotten this tool and started to use it, that the reports that come out of the tool this MAP tool are better than just taking the number 213 and plugging it into Aspen and putting it out on a report card. So I want to just thank Mark for the efforts that he put in. I know as a middle school parent, we got the letter home, and my wife was going through and having conversations at the table with me first on our daughter's progress, and it was kind of neat to see. It's like her and this far above that that expectation on where she would have gotten at the end of the year, already halfway through the year. But it was I think it's one of those that I also applaud him having a follow-up meeting, because it was clear that there were questions that were generated from the report coming home, and now she's like, okay, looking forward to going in now asking questions with that.
Thank you. I want to also commend the staff for really stepping up. They really embraced the opportunity to look at the data, create small groupings, and put together some really meaningful lessons for those students to have to make progress. and they've been excited to look at the data that they're receiving and check back and see what kind of progress the students are making. And like I said, everybody stepped up. Our guidance counselors are running classes, school psychologists, school administration. So we've all been able to play a role in helping our students make progress. Thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Owen?
I'm Robin Miller, principal at Chatham Elementary School. Superintendent Carpenter asked me to stop by and just briefly talk to you about what it kind of looks like from the elementary perspective. I'm happy to come back. Principal Heine and I can come back with our graphs and everything like that to show you also what our graphs look like and some of that data, but I would echo everything that Principal Wilson said as far as all the drill down that we've been doing, all the data collection, all the information. I do want to commend also the staff. They have done a phenomenal job taking this new system of data and applying like our data protocols to it and learning about how to use this information best for our students inside their classrooms. I also want to commend the students for our grade levels. When you're assessing kids in grades K through 4 on this type of assessment, we're calling it like the Goldilocks assessment. And then this is an assessment that gives them questions that are going to be too hard, they're going to be too easy, and then they're going to be just right. So as we're teaching our staff not only to look at the data, but we're also teaching our students what this assessment means. It's not a traditional test. It's what we're calling a compass. It's giving us direction, and we have to teach our children how to look at that in their systems because they're sitting down to this thing and they're used to taking assessments where they have to perform. In this case, they're only being asked to score about 50% of the questions correctly. So as you can imagine, that's hard for them to understand sometimes where, they get a spelling test at the end of the week and they want to do 100%. But here, we're telling them, you're going to get 50% of these questions wrong, and that's okay, because it's giving us a direction. So we're doing all that with our students. So our kids are doing a phenomenal job. Our teachers are doing a phenomenal job. The other thing is that, and I know Principal Burkhead spoke about it, and so did Principal Wilson, this information is really driving our PLCs. So as we're going through all this information, we're looking at our 4 essential questions that guide our PLCs, like what do we want our children to learn? How do we know they learned it? What do we do if they've already learned it? How are we enriching and supporting them? And then how are we supporting them if they need intervention or are struggling? So these are our 4 guiding questions. You heard it come from the high school, middle school, elementary school, same thing. So we're doing all that, and we've done it very quickly over the years. So as far as communication to our parents goes at the elementary level, we sent out a letter in September letting our families know what the assessment was about, what we would be doing with it and learning in our own world, in our teacher worlds, but also how we would be communicating that to our parents. So we told our parents that in June we would be sending the year-end report that Principal Wilson spoke about. However, the staff has come so fast and so quickly in their understanding of this data that we're also sharing this information kind of as an individual basis with our parents. We're sharing it at IEP meetings when we're developing individual educational plans for our students. We're sharing it on we don't have seminars or DAWSOM hour. We have what we call intervention and enrichment blocks, where we have structured our classroom instruction every single day to support, it's an hour. I should call it DAWSOM hour, an hour of enrichment and intervention for all of our students. So we push in all of our support personnel, our guidance counselor, our school psychs, our school psychologist, me once in a while, teachers, all 3 teachers. We break down the walls and we give support and enrichment 2 times a day for 30 minutes each in both language arts and in math. So it's the same idea, but this data is driving that. So as our kids are cycling in and out of our intervention cycles, we're on our 3rd cycle this year, the communication to our parents has been, your student is released from Tier 2 instruction, they're going back into Tier 1, or they're going up into Tier 3 instruction, and we're using these data points to communicate this kind of flex grouping throughout our days in that way to our parents. We also are holding parent universities. We have a March 7th parent university at Chatham Elementary School. All of this information is also for Principal Heine and Assistant Principal Aldeck over at Harwich. Their timeline's a little bit different, but in March 7th we have a parent university. It's on the new MCAS, the next generation MCAS, but we will be sharing some of this projected, as you saw with Principal Wilson's slide. We can get a projection as to how students will do on the next generation assessments. Not so much in the MCAS, it's still on part because MCAS is new, but we have a kind of a predictor, so we're going to be sharing that information on March 7th with our parents about how that predictor is helping us support students to get the scores on the MCAS or in this situation, the next generation MCAS. And then in June, we will have another parent university. It's already scheduled. It will be on how the parents can read the end of the year reports as a reminder to parents. Any of our parent universities, all of our parents are always welcome to go. So I'm assuming Principal Wilson would allow our elementary parents to attend his events as well. And in June, anybody can join ours. In June, we will be taking the end of the reports, going over them with our parents, but we will also be sharing how we're using that Lexile data, that reading data. I'm working with Eldridge Public Library, and Principal Heine and Assistant Principal Aldeck are working with Brooks Library to support their staff in understanding what Lexile means, so we can do the collaborative practice for the summer reading programs as well. So that June 7th, or I think it's June 9th, Parent University will be sharing that data as well.
Questions, comments? Ms. Stout?
It all sounds wonderful. You went so fast I didn't catch one detail. Are you saying kindergarten through 4 through in Harwich and Chatham they're doing this?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So in kindergarten, they're doing it in small groups. They're doing 3 or 4 or 5 students at a time because, again, it's a computer-based assessment. It's adaptive, and kids have to manipulate not only the computer and the screen. We have found that the iPads or the touch screens are better for the younger students, so it's a learning curve for us too, but yes.
Thank you.
I do have some quick data though. Mr. Wilson shared his good data. Can I share a little bit really
Please.
quickly? So remember he talked about those ranges of 40 to 60 being those target numbers. So at Chatham Elementary for grades, it's math and then reading. So for grade K, our median conditional growth was 63. And then our median growth for reading was 47, so really close in that window of being in that target area. For grade 1 was 53%, and for reading was 70%. For grade 2, it was 52% in math and 56% in reading. In grade 3, it was 68% in math and 47% in reading. And in grade 4, it's 54% in math and 58% in reading. And our overall increase in academic achievement in reading, we didn't have real-time scores in math last year. If you remember, we didn't have this kind of data in math. But our overall achievement increase is plus 16% in reading already this year from equivalent scores in reading last year. Thank you. We celebrate a little bit. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, discussion of proposed changes to the regional agreement. I don't know if anybody has any comments on our previous discussions about the regional agreement. I can tell you that, as suggested, I think, by Mr. Duvall, on the issue of whether we would be able to change the regional agreement with regard to quorum. I think I forwarded the letter to everybody, but I did send a letter to the Attorney General's office, and just wanted to say that it's been almost 30 days and I haven't got a response yet, so I'm going to try to push them for that. That's the only update that I have. I think that next Monday we're going to be doing a flyby with the Harwich Selectmen to tell them what they have received a copy of our outline of some proposed changes. I believe we're going to be going there to explain what those are and see if there's any feedback from them. So,
And we have extended to the Chatham Board of Selectmen that same offer to go and just brief them on what the potential changes are.
any comments? Yeah, Mr. Russell?
Without repeating the suggestion, I wonder if the issue of K-4, both elementary schools, that the school committee through the superintendent would be included in that so that there would be a student-teacher ratio balance. It does not exist in the present document. There's been primarily myself raising it a couple of times in the past few months, that the statement would allow the school committee, future school committees, to observe the classroom sizes of the K-4 two schools to make certain that there's a balance between, in this case, Chatham and Howard. So you don't have a situation in which, reverse it for the sake of, that Howard would have a second grade that would have 14-1 and Chatham would have 20-1. That somehow there'd be a way to adjust that either through redistricting, for example.
I think there's language. the language as modified provides for that, but I do like Terry's idea, I think, to explicitly say in the agreement when you would exercise that option. It's not a willy-nilly, let's redistrict for the sake of it, but but that there may be something that creates a situation that we want to create that balance in class sizes between the two buildings.
Yeah, I remember having a brief discussion with you on the question of whether the language was too restrictive in terms of what would have to happen in order for that sort of redistricting to occur.
It strikes me as, I'm not a lawyer, I'll defer to you. It strikes me as very legalistic, and I think as I'm reading through it that there's a mechanism that's there, but it's not abundantly clear, and there's not an explanation as to why a committee would seek to do that.
I may want to explore modifying that language to make it maybe a little more, making the authority a little more expansive than it's currently written. But work in progress.
As a follow-up on that, it's Section 5, location, ownership of schools. This is the original document, not the one that's been reviewed. Item C states, there shall be no less than one elementary school in each member town. Students in the elementary grade shall attend schools in their own town of residence, comma, except in special cases as defined by the regional district school committee. Very obtuse. It doesn't, all I'm trying to make certain that there's clarity here that on an instance in which a clear imbalance occurred, and I'm not talking 1 or 2 students in a class, grade 4 versus grade 4, but where there's 5 or 6 or 7 youngsters over a period of a year or 2 or 3. Now, the most recent projected cohorts seem to be balancing themselves off, but in the future, who knows? I'd rather have it clearer in the next 5 years so that a superintendent could address it in any way he or she would see fit as to best to make certain that those teachers have about the same number of youngsters K through 4.
I agree with you. Anybody else have any comments or thoughts, having had an opportunity to review the proposed changes? No. Ms. Stout?
I'm just wondering if that, I don't want people to be forced to send their kids to a town at those levels that they don't want their child to go to. But I'm wondering with the busing problem, because it seems as though the bus schedule is now fixed for Chatham but not for Harwich. I don't think we're getting any better situation on the length of the bus ride. And is that having to do with that there's so many, does this have to do more with regionalization? Because it wasn't that problem before.
There's the same number of buses servicing Harwich Elementary now as before regionalization, I think that...
No, I don't mean elementary, I mean like the middle school. It goes all the way to the middle school.
Well, the middle school, adding an extra bus to service Chatham Elementary actually helps the middle school because it adds an extra bus to the middle school, so it pulls down the average ridership times for the middle school.
Okay, I didn't see any difference, but, so that does not relate to what this is, about the picking up the bus. The schedule doesn't have anything to do with mandating for class size purposes, children from one town to maybe go to another town.
No, we don't have a bus that's going, running through Harwich, taking kids to Chatham voluntarily, if that's what you're suggesting.
No, but are you thinking that would help the ridership? The buses have less time on the bus.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, if instead of all the busing from Chatham, we're talking about East Harwich, going to Chatham right now. If that happened, would that save time for the kids on the bus?
The ridership time would be slightly.
Can you speak louder, please?
Sure,
Some of us with hearing problems can't hear your private conversation over there.
Sure, the ridership times for, if it were an East Harwich bus that was going to Chatham Elementary, the ridership times would be slightly smaller, or slightly shorter, because after they did the route, they would be having to drive a shorter distance to the nearest elementary school.
Any other comments regarding the regional agreement? Hearing none. Next item on the agenda, I'm trying to speak as fast as Ms. Millen. So.
Very good.
Extension of the bus transportation contract.
Katie
Ms. Izernio.
Isernio, Business Manager. Just to recap, in 2014, we went out to bid for the transportation for our students. And at that time, we went out for 3 years with 2 one-year options. So we're finishing, we're in the middle of our 3rd year, and we need to vote to extend an option year. So I did my due diligence, and I looked around at the average cost. The rate of the proposed price increase is 2%, which overall across the state is very reasonable. There's some pockets in Massachusetts where bus contracts have gone up as much as 19% from one year to the next, so kind of frightening to think about that. So what I would like to do is make the recommendation to exercise the option to extend the bus contract for 1 year extension, which represents a 2% over the current contract year, which is year 3, and as quoted in the bid submission by Jay's Equipment, doing business as Cape Destinations, and this was a contract that the school committee signed April 9th, 2014. So we did have, so at this point, it would be just the 1 year.
Were those previous year's increases of a similar percentage increase?
From year 1 to year 2 was a higher increase. Year 2 to year 3 was 2%, and then the remaining years were 2%.
Mr. DeVoe.
And if we move to tie into next year, we can still go for that additional year, tie in a year from now?
Yes, we can.
Still.
I move to do the 1 year extension.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there any opposed or abstaining? Unanimous vote. Thank you. Next up on the agenda is the fiscal 2018 budget. Many of us have had this presentation. All of us have had this presentation at least twice, and some of us who have attended the presentation for both select boards and both, actually only one finance committee so far.
Only one. If the meeting is on Wednesday, I will defer to you or Terry could give the presentation since I won't be there.
I think it's going to be the week after next. That's going to turn out to be. So, is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Carpenter or Ms. Izernio by any members of the school committee regarding the proposed fiscal 2018 budget? Hearing none. Is there a motion? Mr. Duvall.
I move that we approve the FY 2018 budget as 1,000 district leadership and administration salaries and wages at $876,320. 1,000 district leadership and administration expenses at $500,192. 2,000 instructional salary and wages at $17,366,730. Instructional expenses at $991,671. Other school, 3,000 other school services and salaries and wages of $840,186,000. 3,000 other school service expenses at $1,777,518. 4,000 operations and maintenance salary and wages of $1,122,684. 4,000 operations and maintenance expenses of $1,988,904. 5,000 fixed charges at $7,032,145. 9,000 programs with other school districts at $2,988,784. 7,000 capital at $305,000, and 8,000 debt retirement and service at $2,324,931, for a total general fund of $38,115,065.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Carpenter?
So just for clarity, the last school committee meeting, I talked about that we vote by line items. So what Stephen essentially was reading was the column from slide 28. He just didn't want to wait for me to get to slide 28, I think.
We'll let you start with slide 28. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as read?
Aye.
Any opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you. Next up, subcommittee reports. Oh, Mr. DeVaul.
I further move that the
Yes, you
assessment
do.
for the FY 2018 budget be as follows. Harwich, operating budget at $22,487,923. Transportation for Harwich at $367,275. Capital for Harwich at $224,114, with debt total of $708,359, for a grand total assessment to the town of Harwich of $24,787,671. And for the town of Chatham, operating budget assessment of $8,129,234. Transportation at $124,523. Capital at $80,886. Debt at $616,572, for a 2018 assessment of $8,951,215, for a grand total of the two towns together of $33,738,886.
Is there a second?
I would second that.
Discussion. Mr. Carpenter.
That's slide 42.
Thank you very much.
Cut to the chase.
Any further discussion or helpful discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed or abstaining? It's a unanimous vote. That would be the budget and the assessment. Thank you. Yep. Oh, yes, we do. We have some declaration of surplus equipment.
Where's Nancy when you need her?
Ms. Long,
Yes.
would you like to explain to us what the, your,
Oh, man. Okay.
this is a motion you're making.
I am making a motion to approve the following. Color TV, 1. VCR DVD player, 1. DVD player, 1.
And these are from the Harwich Elementary.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Another unanimous vote. How did I miss that? Oh, there it was. Are there anybody who dares to have a subcommittee report? Hearing none. Is there a superintendent who dares to have a superintendent's report?
I'll be very short. We were this close. I got an email that was just too good to be true from Mike Morrison, our project manager, saying that the train has completed their work, and he feels that we can now close out the project, and was hoping that we could work with Train to get a one-year extension on the sensors that they have been programming. Half an hour later, I get an email that that something else is now amiss. So Train has been feverishly working to resolve these freeze alarms in the units, and apparently they've resolved that issue, but now something in at least one of the units has crept up several times, which is a shut-off alarm. So one step forward, two steps back. So the project continues, but I've promised Ed McManus that we will finish it sometime in the near future.
So sooner or later, the train will leave the station.
Sooner or
Well
later.
put.
But I got all giddy when I saw that email. I was like, yes, we're there. And then half an hour later, it's like, well, so that's all I have there. I also just wanted to quickly chime in on the, Mark was mentioning that, that he's heard, less concerns from parents when it comes to Aspen. I think that also holds for Bill as well, and definitely in my office. We've heard a lot less. I think and I'd credit that on a, sort of, we'll call it a three-pronged endeavor. I know that both Mark and Bill have been, sharing their own expectations with their staff at the beginning of the school year, and I kind of, it's similar, probably to back in the day when you first had email come out, and it's sort of like, how long is a reasonable amount of time to go and get back to someone with an email, and it's just sort of setting out those expectations. Carl and I also sat down and had conversations with the teachers group at the beginning of the school year to just talk about those general expectations to develop into a staff handbook. So I think those different conversations, I think, have helped when it comes to that Aspen front where at least at the middle school and high school it's used as the tool that that students and parents are able to kind of go into and look at the progress in the courses from grade 5 through 12.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Is there any other business before the committee as far as the committee is concerned? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.